Sort of Coming Chapter 1221. Chapter 1221. Who is it? For some unknown reason, Gu temporarily changed his mind and took his maid Lingxian and National Master Huang Lai back to the Taoist temple with a tiny front. Gu walked to the door, reached for the copper door knocker, and knocked 3 times, but there was no response for a long time. Gu Lingyan was too lazy to wait any longer. She walked straight to her young master, clenched her fist and knocked on the door with a loud bang. Inside the Chongyang Temple, which was known as the Alchemy Temple in ancient times, it seemed that I finally heard the movement outside the door. I opened the door with a creak and walked out 2 skinny young Taoist boys, one tall and one short, with the same sallow complexion and skinny muscles. It is indeed a cold temple, so it would be strange if the food is full of oil and water. Gu shook his head with the 2 Taoist boys standing at the threshold, and then smiled and said, "I'm sorry to disturb the 2 Taoist boys who are practicing. I want to enter your temple to ask for a drink of water, but I don't know if it's feasible." The tall Taoist boy suddenly blushed and groaned, not knowing how to reply. The short Taoist boy next to him, who had a straight face, barely had the words, "expulsion order," on his forehead, and smiled broadly after hearing this. "My name is Song Juchuan, and this is my junior brother Zhong Shan. Our junior brothers have not yet been conferred with the magic weapon, so we do not have a Taoist title yet. We usually only help the master by refining several pots of life-prolonging souls for the wealthy families in the capital who line up to visit." Dan. Introducing these distinguished guests into the temple, Song Juchuan deliberately lowered his voice and said, "Master, Imperial Master and our master called each other Taoist friends, and we often drink and discuss Taoism in the Taoist temple." Huang Lai, who was walking at the end of the team, laughed, "Why don't I know that I have been here before? I didn't even know that Chongyang Temple's elixirs were so popular in the capital." Gu Lingyan squinted at the horizon and only saw the vision in general. A pure golden light disappeared in an instant. She vaguely guessed that an expert had interpreted the image and the cicada had shed its corpse. Although it is not comparable to those orthodox ascensions, it is still a superior corpse that is completely reborn. Gu Lingyan thought that he still had this bit of vision. In the wild world, there were often great monks who followed the steps and could not get promoted. There was no way out, so they would settle for the next best thing and choose a dark place to build a mausoleum or an underground palace. The road passed down from ancient times for tomb owners or temple owners to ascend to immortality is carefully laid out, focusing on the transformation of form, resurrection from the dead, achieving the body of a ghost or immortal, or giving the reincarnated body a chance to become immortal and ascend to the immortal realm. After just visiting the Qin Tian prison, she made a decision. It seemed that she would humbly ask the young master for advice and seriously learn the art of qi reading. Gu Lingyan asked in his heart, "Master, is there any result?" Gu nodded. Gu Lingyan couldn't help but ask, "But Ma Kuxuan's skills are not as good as others, and he can't defeat Master Qin. His body was cut off and his life's practice was ruined. It's a pity that Ma Kuxuan still used the magic to save his life in the end. Escaped by luck. Or what's worse, Ma Kuxuan had already planned to use Qin Shan's swordsmanship to help him escape, hoping that do it all over again in the next life." Gu didn't even raise his head. As long as it's something he has thought about deeply and repeatedly before deciding to take action, there will definitely be no surprises. Besides, with Wang Qi and Shi Ji, you are a layman and can only watch the fun. Gu Lingyan was extremely curious and asked, "May I ask, Master, what happened to Ma Kuxuan? That is one of the 10 candidates in the world. Is it just that cold? If Ma Kuxuan were replaced by a wild monk, he would definitely be among the heavenly stems, and his future would be bright." In fact, she also knew that the second possibility she speculated on was impossible. What kind of temper Ma Kuxuan is can be determined by those deeds alone. Ma Kuxuan was one of the few people in this world full of rules that made her feel close to her as soon as she heard rumors about him. Gu Kan said, I don't know the truth either. You can ask him later. Gu Lingxian lamented and said with resentful eyes, how dare I? My teeth will chatter when I see Mr. Yingguan. It is easy to misunderstand when looking at the small entrance of the Taoist temple from the outside. It is estimated that the scale is not large. Once you enter the Taoist temple, you will realize that it is a cave. It occupies a very considerable area. As you enter, you will pass through corridors and winding corridors. The young Taoist boy named Song Juchuan was a chatterbox. While leading the group of guests inside the Taoist temple, he kept talking, our master is the abbot of this temple. He comes from a well-educated family, is young and strong, and is originally from the imperial court. Later he became disheartened and did not want to join in the officialdom, so he always lived as a mountain man. He likes to go into the mountains to collect Ganoderma lucidum. He has stopped cooking for a long time. On weekdays, he only needs to take huangjing poria and coarse food. The huangjing is pickled from the white rice grown in the vegetable garden. There is also a self-made brew in the Taoist temple. Although water is burned with earth, you can't buy it elsewhere even if you have money. Our master is a real old immortal, over 100 years old and has a strong appearance. Even in the cold and snowy season, he refuses to wear cotton wool. Yes, when I stand on the Hunyuan Zhuang or meditate, my whole body will be filled with white gas. The tall Taoist boy felt cold sweat break out on his forehead. Senior brother Song was so good at talking. Just thinking about the lack of popularity of his Taoist temple, Zhong Shan admired and appreciated senior brother Song's good intentions again. Gu Kan smiled and said, I only heard that when a Taoist practitioner exhales and refines qi, smoke of different colors such as green and white will emit from the ears, nose and orifices. The amount depends on the Tao power. Taoist classics name it crane breath. Song Juchuan fisted his palm. Yes, I remember master introduced it to me, those few puffs of smoke are called crane breath. Gu Kan was silent for a moment and said with a smile, I made up the phrase, crane breath. Song Juchuan suddenly became speechless, with a look of astonishment on his face. Okay, the incense money is gone. Does the Taoist temple have to pay for a pot of tea? Master is not generous and still holds grudges. The ancient cypress trees shade the pond, the flowers fall like fallen birds, and the swimming fish peck and eat them. There are 2 cats by the pond. One has pure white fur and a single yellow tail. It is commonly known in the market as a silver vase hanging on a gold rope. It squats as if looking into the water to catch fish. The other has a yellow body, a white belly and white feet, and is named Jinbei in bed. Butterflies fluttering and playing. Song Juchuan grinned and said, wild cats often go to the kitchen to steal food. The dull Zhongshan has something to say, and they can't steal anything to eat. Compared to senior brother Song, Zhong Shanku was the clumsiest and slow to learn anything. His master always said that he was an ignorant person. If he could practice Taoism, there would be no one in the world who could not cultivate immortality. There is an old Taoist under the Panasonic in the temple with snow-white hair on his temples, wearing a pair of straw shoes on his feet, on his shoulder, and a bamboo basket in his hand. There are some pieces of poria cocos stained with soil in the bamboo basket. With a sigh, he raised his head and glanced at the sky. The old Taoist priest counted his fingers and shook his head. In short, it is becoming increasingly difficult for people to understand this world. The old Taoist walked slowly, and when he saw the group of people, he couldn't help but feel doubtful. His Taoist temple was usually closed, but there were actually pilgrims who took the initiative to knock on the door. Did you get money for getting on the pole? Is such a beautiful thing really possible? I'm afraid that if the good ones don't come, those who come will be unkind. The two Taoist boys saluted and said, "Disciple pays homage to Master Jing." The old Taoist's face remained normal. He nodded in greeting, handed the hose and bamboo baskets to the two disciples, and prepared to entertain the guests in person. The old Taoist had already freed up his hands, made a gesture, and said with a carefree smile, "Pindao Qing Feng Xian." Both disciples are accustomed to call Pindao Master Jing. Pindao's native place is in Shui Prefecture, his monastery is in Liangshan, and he is a wandering cultivator. I traveled to other continents a few years ago and stopped here. There is no serious title, it is self-proclaimed, and it cannot be taken seriously. It is the same as the private posthumous title of the literary scholar Lin, so I don't mention it, so as not to make people laugh. Gu Kan asked, "But what about Duliang Mountain near Shui Water Mansion?" Qing Fengxian nodded in agreement, greatly surprised, and said in surprise, "Young master is really knowledgeable and knowledgeable. People in the world have only heard of Shui Water Mansion but not Duliang Mountain. If they knew more about the past, they would only know about the refinement of half a Tongling tomb. Du Xiuzai, who is in Shanshan and half of the Shui shrimp soldiers, how can he know everything about Liangshan?" Huang Lai asked in confusion, "Du Xiuzai?" Qing Fengxian smiled and refused to explain. Gu Kan introduced, "In the history of the Middle-earth Divine Continent, there was a Mr. Wusong named Du, nicknamed Du Xiuzai, and he was a master refiner as famous as Mrs. Su. Shui Prefecture, the prefecture and county offices are all located on the mountain. Raising one's eyebrows is called Su, and staring straight at Shui means farsightedness, hence this popular ancient name. Along the way, the scenery along the way was impressive, with ancient buildings and flowers and trees. Huang Lai couldn't help but praise the good feng shui. "I used to be in the dark under the lamp, but I didn't know there was such a feng shui treasure right under my nose." The old Taoist priest led them to a hut called Zonglu, not far from the ancient pine trees. Gu Kan glanced at the plaque with graceful handwriting. Qing Fengxian pointed to the ancient pine. This pine was planted by the founder of this Taoist temple. It has been there for many years. There are poria cocos underneath and it is almost in human form. Gu Lingyan glanced at the scene under the ancient pine trees, secretly covered his mouth and smiled. He was indeed the kind of master who could have any kind of disciple, and could brag without drafting. Gu Kan smiled and said, "Immortal Chong Gao Feng." The implication is that he dares to speak openly about this matter to outsiders. Gu Lingyan asked Huang Lai alone with his heartfelt voice, "Can you see the strange rustic nature of poria cocos becoming a spirit?" Qing Fengxian twisted his beard and said with a smile, "I know a little about yin and yang prophecies, astrology and fortune-telling, and the skills of traveling around the world, but I dare not say that I can enter the palace, and I am far away from being a proficient person." Gu Kan hesitated for a moment and said slowly, "I once saw 2 sentences in someone's reading notes, which are related to this." The old Taoist priest said "Oh," and said with a smile, "I would like to hear the details." Gu Kan said slowly, "When people talk about astronomy today, they only go to Lindu to inquire about calculations. I say that the movement of heaven makes a gentleman constantly strive for self-improvement. This is the astronomy recommended by the founders of the 3 religions. When people talk about geography today, they all investigate and survey the territory. I say that the terrain is good and the gentleman carries things with great virtue. This is the geography that the founders of the 3 religions have witnessed together." "Master Jing, do you think so?" The old Taoist was surprised and suddenly realized after hearing this, with a face full of mixed emotions, and said, "If we, the Taoist cultivators, can really embody the 2 images of heaven and earth into ourselves, it is only a small trick of yin and yang, 5 elements and prophecies, how can it be considered Taoist? A wise man can never deceive a fool. A fool will always believe a lie to be true. Why do you say this, master? Just say whatever you feel. By the way, Who is the person you are talking about? Can you recommend me to Pindao? Cannot. Dare to ask the immortal's Taoist number. Take your own way and return to your fortune. On the top of Jiao Mountain, on the high branches of a towering ancient tree, there were 3 people standing or squatting. Not far away is the temple of the mountain goddess Nyangnyang, where the golden body of Song Wei is enshrined. Standing is Ma Kexuan's maid Shudian. Standing is the eldest disciple Wang Zhu. Ma Kexuan changed his name to him. He said that the name and Taoist name can be combined into one, and the province is long. In fact, a few of them knew it well. Not only did it form an idiom with Shudian, but also because it had some homophones with the real dragon Wang Zhu. Ma Kexuan's practice has absolutely nothing to do with the word diligence, but he has great love for his direct descendants. Whether it is teaching thunder techniques or giving guidance on martial arts, it can be said that he has given all his money to this pioneer. I am afraid that there are not 50 but 40 books on Taoism and boxing among my disciples. Today, the realm of Wangzhou is the 2 golds, the golden elixir realm and the golden body realm. His qualifications can be described as outstanding, but because his master is Ma Kexuan, he seems to be average and not very impressive. There is also a squatting young man with a hatchet on his waist, named Gao Ming. He and Ma Kexuan, the master is not like the master, and the apprentice is not like the apprentice. They like to call Ma Kexuan Old Ma. He even asked Ma Kexuan face to face if he could switch to Luopa Mountain for 2 reasons. One was that he felt he had more potential, and the other was that he wouldn't have to look down upon and be unwelcome wherever he went. The hatchet boy frowned and asked, "What's going on? Did the old horse lose?" Wang Zhu remained silent. There is no need to waste your breath on things that are obvious. Gao Ming looked away and said, "Senior brother, we can't catch up even if we chase him. Then how can we find the reincarnation of the master?" Looking at the direction, they were heading towards the Middle-earth divine continent. How could they find it? If they went north, it would be fine. It would be Beiju Luzhou. If they went south, they might at most be the main continent. Or Tonggizhou, there is at least a glimmer of hope. Now going west, the sky is huge, it is not like finding a needle in a haystack. Wang Zhu looked sad and said in a deep voice, "Only one who is an immortal can barely catch up with that golden light. Besides, Master said that as long as we lose this fight, there is no need to look for him. It is doomed to be in vain." Gao Ming continued, "Master also said that as soon as he dies, you can restore your identity and real name. It should be called Su Qingshan. It is a really good name. Master asked me to tell you one more thing. You don't have to think about how to deal with it anyway. You have taken revenge. If you see that man named Shin when you are walking on the road, remember to kowtow to him a few times as a thank you for his kindness in helping you take revenge." The woman was silent, her eyes were complicated, and her face was pale. Ma Kexuan left Qin Pingan with 3 puzzles. Just let Qin Pingan be careful and careful. The answer lies with these 3 people. Ma Kexuan not only asked them to keep their secrets, but also told them that if one day they wanted to go to Luola Mountain to join Qin Pingan, or if Qin Pingan found them one day, they could tell the answer to the mystery. As for whether it was a stepping stone or a way to save their lives, Fu, it doesn't matter what they choose, it's all arbitrary. The answer to the mystery is the names of 3 people. Like Ma Kexuan, these 3 people are the younger generation of Lizhu Cave Heaven. For example, the person Gao Ming knows is named Lu Jingchen. It seems that he is a descendant of the Lu family in Fulu Street, and is now working for the Su family in Qingfeng City. In the capital city God's Temple of Yushuan Kingdom, 2 outsiders came. They clearly came from across the mountains and rivers in Shudi, but they were able to avoid disturbing the local city god. If I had to use an analogy to describe the scene when these 2 people came here, it would probably be that the emperor and the minister in the play visited the local county government together incognito. A short man with a dark face and a man with a beautiful beard. The former was not as tall as Pei Qian. He was dressed in black and had a white jade belt around his waist. The man held the belt with both hands. It's a pity that the elegant and bearded man next to him is at least a head taller than him. Although Pei Qian was surprised, he still smiled brightly. He used the method of concentrating the sound into a line and said with cupped hands, "Pei Qian has met Zhou Qinghuang and General Fan." The short man nodded. General Fan is responsible for his duties. He needs to patrol various continents during the day. I have nothing to do and follow him around. The man with the beautiful beard smiled and said, "We meet again, little nerd." Pei Qian grinned. I remember that master's husband once praised the Zhou Qinghuang who was the highest among human beings in front of him. I have never seen such a short person with such a tall and powerful appearance. He is so majestic and majestic. Inexplicably, he became a registered worshipper in Luopa Mountain. The old deaf boy with the Taoist name Long Xing took a temporary detour. Instead of going directly to Li Huai, he took his disciples away from Shirwanda Mountain and went straight across the Great Wall of Sword Qi with his sword. Gontang pinch to the magic formula helped Yoyu to use the blinding method to hide his whereabouts to avoid unnecessary complications. From a bird's eye view, Yoyu Yujin saw that on the top of the half-city, there were many groups of monks from other places, scattered in different places admiring the scenery, with clumps like flowers. High in the sky where the Jiangxian's private residence was supposed to be, the old deaf boy couldn't help but look back towards the city. He thought he would be stopped by the sage from the Confucian temple who was stationed here, and he would need to report his identity and submit an ultimatum. It was just a formality, and the old deaf boy had no grudges about it. After all, he had long been accustomed to being a man with his tail between his legs on the Sword Qi Great Wall. Unexpectedly, he passed the wall so smoothly, which made the old deaf boy feel worried. I muttered, the Confucian temple just doesn't treat me as a dish. But if he was really stopped, Gontang would probably complain a few more times. Even if the boss sword immortal is gone, there is still a young Yin official who has recently carved words. Ning Yao has just entered the 14th realm, and there is still a seat in the colorful world. As for Feishing City, do you Confucian temple really think that the Great Wall of Sword Qi no longer exists? When we arrived at the ruins of the old city, the old deaf man sighed and fell to the ground first. He revisited his old place, felt sad when he saw the things, paid homage to the historical sites, and pondered endlessly. A great monk naturally has the vision of a great monk. The words written by the sages for the human world are actually an invisible cage of heaven and earth for the remnants of the ancient gods. As long as they appear in the world, they need to face the thorns laid and created by these human words. Ordinary masters in the world, practiced Qi scholars, as well as the landscape gods who were enshrined in later dynasties, have little sense of this. However, the higher the realm of the ancient gods and the more refined their golden bodies, the greater the limitations. When people in the world walk on mountain roads full of thorns, it is very easy for their clothes to get hooked and their skin to be pierced. In the same way, the ancient gods appeared from the sky and appeared in the world, just like walking on a thorny road with words. Every step they take will wear out their golden bodies. That's why Zhou Mi personally formulated a new text for the wild world, not only to help the demon clan draw a clear line between Haoran and the human race, but also to pave the way for secretly attracting the ancient gods hiding in the sky. Yoyu whispered, Ning Yao and that senior met, but they didn't seem to ask Master why he could return to the Ascension realm. Gontang nodded and said unconcernedly, this is probably the spirit of the 14th realm. Below the 14th realm, it's all a matter of idleness. The ups and downs of other people's realms are nothing to talk about. This sneaky and risky return to the dojo, of course Gontang did more than just go back for a look. Yo-Yo asked, "What is master doing here?" Gontang said, "I heard someone say that the alluring taste of hometown lies not in food but in wine." Yo-Yo guessed that the young Ingguan told the master. After all, few people in the Great Wall of Sword Chi were willing to chat with their master. The former Jianqi Great Wall roughly consisted of 3 areas: the main city, the private residence of Jianxian to the south of the main city, and the Mirage to the north, which was a mountain market with bustling commerce. Gontang stretched out his hand and pointed to the north. It used to be a beautiful place with wind, flowers, snow and moon, gold and silver flowing, fish and dragons mixed together, and the fairy money in the pocket was more useful than the realm of the monks. Unlike the Great Wall of Sword Chi. Much like Haoran Tianxia. The most criticized aspect of the Great Wall of Sword Chi is the arena created by this mirage. It is more cruel than the Tuli Mountain in Luzhou, Beiju. Every time you go up 2 people, one must die before it is over. Of course, it often happens that both of them die, or one of them falls down or is left half-dead man. Now, on the site of that mirage, a place that can barely be called the Immortal Inn has been opened. Just like the boss Jianxian just revealed one thing to Qin Pingan, the Summer Palace, the Cold Palace, and the SH City Mirage, combined together, form a 3-mountain formation. Since it is named 3 Mountains, of course it is the work of Mr. Sanshan Zhouho. And the mirage among them was an ascension platform carefully imitated by the Sword Chi Great Wall, which took a very long time. The foundation of the mirage was created by the hidden official before Shao Sun. He was a man with great talents and great plans but bad luck. His realm was too low and he could not live long. The old deaf child had a good relationship with this person at first. In the end, this mirage became the tip of Qin Qingda's sword that cleared the way and lifted the city up. The great ancestor of Tuoyue Mountain had already expected this, but there was no need to stop Qin Qingdu from using this sword. After all, those who left were all young sword cultivators with very low realms. Even Ningyao had not reached the Jade Pu realm at that time. If the wilderness wants to kill them all, it will have to pay a huge price to eradicate them. From Qin Qingdu to Qi Tingji, Qin Shi to Lu Ji and Lao Defer, etc., they all made different choices back then. What the wild world wants has never been the Great Wall of Sword Chi, which is hard to chew and has only a few ounces of meat. The great ancestor of Tuoyue Mountain and the group of demons on the throne are staring at the big fat wall. There is a vast world where everything is available except for the word barren. In fact, if Qin Qing was willing to give way to the barbaric world and the mountains and rivers of the 2 continents of the Great Wall of Sword Chi, so what? Not enough. Then in the barbaric world, I will give you the Sword Chi Great Wall Sword Cultivator to establish a religion, and give you Qin Qingdu everything you need to be called the ancestor. The master and the apprentice walked to the Huangmi Street. The old deaf boy chose a roadside wine shop with the best business. The shopkeeper was a plump woman with a mole at the corner of her mouth. She wore a soft hat made of various kinds of beautiful jade and made into flowers and plants. Sueguan, wearing a round-collared green robe. She was leaning against the counter with a relaxed attitude, holding a round fan in her hand, and her appearance was extremely beautiful. The waiter who serves food and drinks in the shop is a young man of low status but full of energy. According to the saying on the mountain, he has deep Taoist roots and a fairy seedling. The woman glanced at the rickety old man and then at the young swordsman. She didn't dare to be scornful and started shouting in person. The old deaf boy asked for a pot of wine and some appetizers. The woman turned to look at the inner door. He opened a yellow bamboo curtain, called Tongtua, and reported the names of several dishes to the kitchen in the backyard. The Jingyao clan wanted to make a quick and easy exchange of lives, so that the business would be more profitable. Unexpectedly, in the end, a retreat that seemed to have the right time, took place and people came together, resulting in an alchemy room that was broken into pieces and fell directly into the realm. Not only was there no being able to reach the Jade Poo realm in one fell swoop, but instead become a tattered golden elixir with a shattered sword heart. This is a big joke in the Great Wall of Sword Chi. Instead of being injured on the battlefield and falling into the realm, on the contrary, he did not break through the realm in seclusion and came out of seclusion. There is no sword cultivator who is more looked down upon than this. Hearing this, Yoyu nodded and said, I often saw Su Yong when I was a child. Although he had gone off grains and had a diet of whole grains, he could have stopped the fireworks in the world. But when Yoyu waited for the dishes to be served, he still asked the waiter for 2 bowls of rice. Those who eat their breath are immortals, and those who do not eat their breath are gods. Some Qi practitioners often feel nauseous and vomiting when they smell the Qi of fire and food in the food. Fortunately for the genealogy monks, the sect has its own immortal medicated diet and elixirs, but the mountain and wild cultivators suffer. The old deaf boy shook his wine bowl, and Su Yong was a bad drunkard and addicted to gambling. He also liked to visit brothels, refused to pay back the money he owed all year round, and defaulted on debts to avoid debts. He travels back and forth between the city and the mirage here all year round, doing some shady business, running errands for people, and earning some price difference. Whoever is willing to treat him to a drink is his uncle. To say that a sword cultivator who fell from nascent soul to golden core is still a land swordsman who cannot be underestimated in other places. There may be criticism behind his back, but he will definitely not be sarcastic in person. It is a pity that Su Yong is in the Great Wall of Sword Chi. Then I became someone's follower, and my life got a little better. Who is so-and-so? Who else could it be? That person once advised Su Yong to go to Houran Tianxia. I believe the reason was just to move trees and move dead people. The golden elixir sword cultivator in Houran Tianxia is still very popular. It can be seen that Su Yong was indeed tempted, otherwise I wouldn't go to the gate from time to time, but I didn't go there in the end. Since he is a golden elixir, he followed him to the colorful world. No. When Yoyu heard this answer, he knew there was no need to ask about the ending and started to eat with his head down. The old deaf child continued. Su Yong shaved his beard, put on clean clothes, secretly went to the battlefield, picked up a standard long sword produced by the sword workshop, and killed some barbarians. Chen Pingon smiled and asked, Forgive me for being ignorant, may I ask where my friend is from? Yoyu suppressed laughter. The female cultivator who called herself Wei Yudian looked slightly sluggish, but she still had a good face and explained in a good tone, It is located in Liuxia continent, and is a close neighbor of Tianyu Cave Heaven for thousands of years. She really didn't believe that this person had never heard of her own Xiujiang Shangxi sword sect. Although the other person was deliberately pretending to be stupid, she would not become angry. The leaders on the mountain in Liuxia continent mainly have one visible figure and one hidden figure. The former is Jinghao from the Ascension realm of Qinggong Mountain, and the latter is the couple from Tianyu Cave. The Shangxi sword sect is not comparable to these two mountain forces and is considered a first-rate sect in Liuxia continent, otherwise she would not have deliberately said the term family friend. The Taoist tradition of Shangxi sword sect mainly includes 3 branches, Lishan, Chuanfu and Qingyang. Partridge Palace is the core of the Chuanfu branch. The previous palace mistress of the Partridge Palace, Hua Furong, was the founder and first head of the Shangxi sword sect. She was a great swordsman renowned in several continents and had passed down 3 sword veins. It is said that after practicing Taoism for 3,000 years, he became tired of the world and became an immortal, and then dissipated into water. Hua Furong is Wei Yudian's mentor. Wang Hujing, the contemporary head of the Shangxi sword sect, is a Jade Pu realm swordsman. In terms of seniority, he still needs to call Wei Yudian his uncle. Our ancestors were rich and our family had a strong financial background. Now our family has never been in decline. There is no sign of decline. It is just that its power is not as strong as when it was at its peak. Such a sect in the mountains will have smooth sailing wherever it goes. And people like Wei Yudian are at least well known on this street now. Her family is a wealthy and ancient existence at the foot of Lixiaozi mountain. They belong to a powerful Taoist family. They have built an ancestral altar where they can confer and add urns. It was once the talisman promotion altar for various Taoist sects in Izhou and the Wei family altar. It is said to have 12 kinds of urns and 24 kinds of talismans, which is relatively rare in the world. In addition, the Wei family also has a commendable tradition. Most of the women are beauties who have conquered the country. In almost every generation, there are several women who are either queens of a certain country or queen mothers of a certain dynasty. And her personal disciple Wang Ku was the young boy who had a close connection with the immortal family. When he was born, a green Polonia tree suddenly grew in front of his door, and there were immortals and ghosts singing songs from it. Wei Yudian smiled and said, "Then let me tell you the truth. Without beating around the bush, can you invite fellow Taoists to our Shaanxi sword sect as a guest?" The old deaf boy waved his hand and said, "I have already agreed to the invitation of this fellow Taoist Chen to be a worshipper." Wei Yudian suddenly understood, turned around and asked, "May I ask Dao Yuqin where is the fairyland?" Chen Pingan smiled and said, "A small place, Aquarius Island." Wei Yudian praised, "Although Dongbeipingshao is a small place, there are countless strange people and strangers." Chen Pingan nodded and said, "That's why I need to invite Senior Longxing to my house on the hilltop to hold a meeting. I also hope that Wei Daoyu, a gentleman, will not take advantage of others, and don't cut off halfway things." Wei Yudian raised the wine bowl and drank it all in one gulp. "How dare you!" The old deaf man had actually seen the fatigue of the young official, and he really couldn't imagine who could let him be so seriously injured now. At the Jinchi Great Wall, old Defer adheres to the principle of doing less than doing more, and has always behaved indifferently. Therefore, until now, he has not asked the reason for this matter. Old Defer took the initiative to bring up the wine bowl and said, "I represent Dao Yuqin, have a drink." Wei Yudian drank another bowl of wine and said with a wry smile, "Unlike our Liuxia Island, the grass does not grow under the pines and cypresses." Chen Pingan smiled and seemed not to understand what she meant. The old deaf child was a little surprised. She had just drank half a kilogram of wine, and then she started uttering the truth after drinking. Wei Yudian squeezed out a smile and said, "My master used to often say that to refine a sword, you have to cross the hanging mountain. To learn from immortals, you need to learn from heavenly immortals. Both swordsmanship and immortal techniques must be directed towards the great road." The old deaf child echoed, informed. "Look at each other with Mr. Yingguan. When we get to Luopa Mountain in the future, we won't need this kind of wine table entertainment every day, right?" "Of course not. Luo Mountain is very clean, just in case you don't think it's lively enough." Wei Yudian looked at the lush street outside the door and heard her sigh for no reason. The wind and clouds are meeting, wars are breaking out, vertical and horizontal fights are going on, dragons and snakes are rising, and all the people are flying. The old deaf child looked at Chen Pingan again. What kind of medicine was she selling in this gourd? After all, he is a Yuanying realm sword cultivator who comes from a sect. How can he be so heartfelt to the three of us? She smoothed her hair on her temples, and the breeze blew her noodles and wine away. In the sea of right and wrong, it is difficult to travel straight. The family's internal and external troubles, and the sect's immediate and distant worries made her, who had always been clear-minded, feel that her future was bleak. What's more, Wei Yudian also received a secret letter personally written by the leader, and someone was already on his way here. She is a nascent soul, but not a sword cultivator. How can she get rid of the entanglement of a jade purity sword immortal who, on the surface, still holds great righteousness and principles? To be honest, the master calculated a prophecy for my disciple Wang Ku, which has a total of 18 words. I couldn't figure it out when I came down from the mountain, but now it has come true. Wei Yudian stretched out his hand and asked Wang Ku to come over and sit with him. He spoke to everyone in his heart. The purple book is passed down in the Mirage Tower. Carefully carry the dagger. Kill first and then seal the title. Chen Pingan held his hands in his sleeves, half asleep and half awake, as if he was taking a nap with his eyes squinted. Wei Yudian said, "Before this, my disciple also got an opportunity. Wang Ku, don't have any scruples and deliberately conceal this matter. Tell the truth yourself and the 3 seniors." Wang Ku was obviously a little reluctant, but since it was the master who had spoken, he had no choice but to take out a rusty bronze dagger from his sleeve. "I got this by accident in an abandoned Taoist temple called Zhangrenguan. A dagger, the exact year and month of which cannot be ascertained, is engraved with 2 seal characters, namely Zhao and Su." Chen Pingan raised his eyes and explained with a smile, "If I am not mistaken, Zhao is the country's surname, and Su is the people's surname. The Zhao dagger in the sleeve was bought from Mrs. Su." The young man was doubtful. "It's as gloomy as falling clouds and mist, but it's not like all the Taoist cultivators in the world are so sincere and heartfelt words to everyone, right?" The old deaf child could only ask in his heart, "Master Yingguan, you are well informed and can you tell me something? If she keeps digging her heart out like this, she will almost think of me as an ancestor. I'm so stupid." Chen Pingan said slowly, "It is said that a new sect has arisen in a certain dynasty next door to Wei Yudian's family. It is aggressive and wants to compete with the Si Jian sect for the nominal 3rd throne of Liuxia continent. This rising star, who was founded less than a century ago, has a good relationship with Qinggong Mountain and Tianyu Cave Heaven. The young sect leader has a complicated relationship with the Wei family, which puts great pressure on the Shaanxi sword sect. It is estimated that she saw that her predecessors had deep moral qi, so she became ill and sought medical treatment in a hurry. She wanted to find external help. It would be best if she was related to the Great Wall of Sword Qi so that the other party would not dare to act rashly. There is a position of etiquette officer in her sect, named Guanzhe. During every celebration, there are 1 or 2 people from the 3 paths of Lishan, Qingyang and Chuanfu. They must be middle 5 sword cultivators to hold the position. One of them was born in a noble family in Tianhuang, and was close friends with the young master of Tianyudong Tianshu. For some reason, he was the youngest champion in the history of Shaanxi sword sect, and this person who had high hopes was given up by the Zhuxiatang. He was removed from the genealogy and expelled from the country. I guess her boss not only helped Wang Ku with his fortune-telling, but also helped her with her fortune-telling. By coming here, she can escape from marriage and take refuge at the same time. For example, if we calculated it early, she might meet an expert like Senior Longxing here, a secretive old swordsman. The old deaf man's eyes suddenly lit up, and he ignored the old swordsman and the swordsman, escape from marriage. In addition to the hatred of the country and the resentment of the masters, is there a story about makeup and powder? Chen Pingan stopped talking and didn't want to talk about this. I met the old deaf man, chatted a few words, and waited to return to the capital of Yushuan Kingdom on time. Of course, the old deaf boy didn't covet the beauty of Wei Yudian. At his age and state, he couldn't get enough of the beauty in the world. What's more, Gontang has been practicing Taoism all his life, and he has a very indifferent view of male love and female love, which is not a good thing. As for Wei Yudian's clumsy trick, the old deaf boy saw through it at a glance. Her appearance was indeed worthy of the title of Qingqing, and her figure was even better. She was so skinny in the areas where she should be thin, but she was so fat in the areas where she should be that she still trembled despite the looseness of her robe. trembling. It is obviously the beauty of hibiscus growing out of clear water, but it has all kinds of charming charm. Wei Yudian looked at the middle-aged man with a strong official aura, and said bravely, "I would like to ask the name of the Sword Immortal's immortal mansion." However, she only saw the swordsman in green clothes closing his eyes and concentrating. It was obvious that he did not want to wade into troubled waters and did not want to get involved in her personal grudges. But the reason why she acted so brazenly was because she grasped a life-saving straw, because in the leader's hexagram, there is a sentence, "Stop when encountering a dragon, and you will be happy when you are young." No matter how thick-skinned Wei Yudian was, he couldn't hold him back by force. After thinking about it, he had to put aside his thoughts temporarily, said goodbye, and walked back to the counter with his apprentice. The old deaf boy shook his sleeves, counted his fingers in his head, and made up a hexagram on the spur of the moment. Sword of Coming Chapter 1222. Chapter 1222 Pride. The Great Wall of Sword Chi was once a place where it was easier to buy wine than fetch water. Today's noisy market is like the continuation of a new page in a book. But no matter what, it's better than nothing. It is better than being completely silent and simply becoming a foreigner visiting this place to pay homage to the past. Unlike the old deaf child who was so worried and twisted, Xiago noticed Chen Pingan's strange behavior at the moment, so she asked directly, "Mountain Master, he is seriously injured." "He is very capable. Do you need me to follow him? Can Xiaoma help us find the place?" "Don't worry, Mountain Lord, Xiaoma and I, aside from swordsmanship, are also good at concealing energy and changing appearance. I also have a unique swordsmanship that can cut off cause and effect. It's not just a boast, it's no better than Chunyang Lu Yan's hand in shaking hands outside the world is too inferior, and it is impossible to follow the clues to teach the other party to master fortune-telling and deduction. If she were an immortal, she would be deemed unworthy to be a Taoist companion with Xiao Imo whenever she had to hand out two swords. She is still very confident about ordinary Ascension Realm monks, such as Jinghao and his ilk, who are really like paper. She had already secretly flipped through the first dozen pages of Qin Lingjun's collection of strangers. Unless it is the great celestial master of Longhu Mountain or the fire dragon master of Piety Peak, these are the more difficult candidates for harmony in the 14th realm, so she does not dare to say anything to death. She only needs to call Xiaoma together, and it will be safe. Well. Chen Pingan stretched his hand around, patted the hilt of the sword lightly, and said, "I just had a fight with someone. It was a narrow victory. The price was not small. Even the knight's swim in the sheath was cut off. You don't need to find the place, it's already refreshing ending." The old deaf boy still knows some things about the world, and he already understood it just from this conversation. Senior Bai Jing really didn't regard himself as an outsider, and young Yingguan really didn't regard her as an outsider either. Xiago gave a thumbs up. Since ancient times, talented people have been punished by heaven, and those who can pass the test have accumulated Taoist power. After this battle, the master of the mountain will surely practice like a broken bamboo, unimpeded, and go straight to the Ascension realm. When the old deaf boy heard this, his heart was shocked and he gasped. Could it be that Luo Luoshan has the same atmosphere as a summer palace? I am an upright person by nature, but I am not good at this kind of rhetoric. When I get to Luola Mountain, won't I have to be unsocial, and will I have to sit on the bench there? He kept reminding himself to speak faster and quickly explained, "This time we are going down the mountain. When I traveled far away, the boss gave me a total of 3 tips. Once, I was asked to choose a good and auspicious day to open a shop and sell wine. There was a command on the wind and thunder note, if you encounter a dragon, you will stop, if you encounter a green, you will be happy." One time was let his disciple Wang Ku go on a night trip one day, and Wang Ku got the opportunity to combine 2 swords. The master told me to open this last tip bag only when I meet a dragon and a young man, but he repeatedly told me not to read the text content, only to open it in person. Just leave it to any expert from Long or Qing. Chen Pingan took the brocade bag, took out the small note, took a look at it, put it back in the brocade bag, and handed it back to Wei Yudian. His expression became visibly gentler, and he said, "You can rest assured to do business here. I will if you travel to Liuxia continent, you will visit Shaanxi sword sect and Fenzhou Wei Shi. As for when fellow Daoist Wei will be able to return to Liuxia continent, we will wait for the notification from head Ding in the future." Xia Go asked in his heart, "Mountain Master, what's going on?" Chen Pingan said helplessly, "Hua Furong, the founder of the Shaanxi sword sect, is also the master of Wei Yudian. She traveled to the Great Wall of Sword Qi for the second time. She has a good relationship with the Ning Mansion and is a frequent visitor." Xiago suddenly realized, if I had known there was such a relationship, I wouldn't have beaten the out of that sword immortal or that master. Chen Pingan asked, "I would like to ask, why is Wei Daoyu not a sword cultivator?" The Wei family in Fenzhou Shangmiao village in Lixiazu is a Taoist family with a long history and is one of the 6 major sects in the world. The famous Taifu Temple is the family temple of Wei Yudian. The colorful hanging sculptures in the Taoist temple contain 365 divine kings on duty, which are unique and the best in the continent. Wei Yudian carefully put the tips into her bag and felt relieved. When she heard the question, she answered with a respectful expression, "The disciple is not the kind of innate sword immortal embryo. It is because the ancestors of the family went to sea in the early years and received the legacy of an ancient sword immortal and the inheritance of swordsmanship. One of the relics is a flying sword. It has been passed down from generation to generation that due to fate, I got the flying sword when I was young. I took the initiative to identify the owner and entered a natal acupoint to warm it up on its own. The flying sword was taken by that person. The ancestor's temporary name is Xiao Jian. Ancient friendship is like true gold, its color will never return after 100 refinements. This young hidden official indeed has the character of a knight in ancient times." With about half a stick of incense left to spare, Chen Pingan came to the base of the city wall and looked at the land sword immortal who was about to fall apart. He still showed no sign of waking up. The Confucian temple attendant sage who was stationed here also did not show up. The meaning of dissuading the fight was just leaving a young sect master indifferent. A Taoist who is only 2 years old in the Yupu realm is still a sword cultivator. He founded a sect at such a young age. Not to mention Liuxia continent, he is an extraordinary figure in the entire Haoran world. Xiago asked curiously, "Why don't you call Wei Yudian and have a drum to gong discussion with this swordsman who is lying on the ground and sleeping soundly, and make it clear face to face?" Chen Pingan said, "Suppose Gao Yi is really Wei Yudian's debt collector. With us by his side, Wei Yudian's Taoist heart will inevitably feel confident. Taoist monks cannot rely on external forces to escape disaster before their manpower is exhausted. This matter is important to Taoism. It's in the way." The old deaf boy nodded and said, "That's the truth." Chen Pingan smiled and asked, "Such a heavy blow?" Xiago laughed, "I'm just saving his life." The old deaf boy still nodded in agreement. Senior Bai Jing's words were true. If it were the young Qi Tingji who heard those same words, he would probably be on his way. Xiago glanced sideways at the old deaf boy and began to give orders to the general worshippers as the second worshipper, "Wake him up. In Luopa Mountain, the realm is useless." She finally caught someone who entered Luopa Mountain later than her, and he was also a demon monk who was used to being a punching bag. "Why don't you pick him up? The old deaf boy has no brain defects, so how can he do it?" Chen Pingan said, "Wake him up and seize the time to chat. I will return to Aquarius continent soon." Only then did the old deaf man take action, squatting down, reaching out to hold the man's shoulders, and shook them a few times, allowing the soul, muscles, bones, and energy of the young swordsman to return to their original positions. Seeing that Gao Yi woke up, Chen Pingan said, "I have heard about the personal grudge between you and Wei Yudian. The Wei family's dynasty is indeed unethical and should not break the contract. You came here alone, found Wei Yudian, and wanted to. There is no problem in getting the money back with interest. I am not interested in this kind of love and hatred. The reason why Xiago attacked you is because you shouldn't say dirty words here." Gao Yi leaned against the wall, raised his head and stared at the man in the green shirt in the middle, then looked at the girl in the mink hat from the corner of his eye, and sneered, "What a good trick I have learned from you. Do you dare to give me your name?" Xiago was really not used to this kind of idiot who couldn't figure out the situation. He kicked him, and the sole of his shoe hit the young swordsman's forehead. He hit the city head with the back of his head, causing the young swordsman to faint again. The old deaf boy had no choice but to squat down again and wake up the young swordsman. Gao Yi didn't dare to say harsh words anymore. He just lowered his head and stretched out his fingers to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. Chen Pingan continued, "When Wei Yudian opens a shop here and sells wine, don't bother her. But as long as she returns to Harantianxia, you can wait for her at sea, or seek revenge and collect debts in Lixiazu. Each one depends on his own ability. Do it at your own risk." Gao Yi crossed his arms across his chest and remained silent. He's like that kind of arrogant young man in the market. He won't lose even if he loses. Even if his head is split open and his mouth is full of blood and he can't open his mouth, he still has to speak with his eyes. "As long as you don't beat me to death today, sooner or later I will kill you one day." The old deaf boy rubbed his chin. It was strange. He had been slapped away by Senior Bai Jing before. How come this kid still didn't know the pros and cons, and showed it so grandly on his face? The most famous great monks in Liuxia continent are Jinghao from Qinggong Mountain and Xu Nanyuan, the heavenly master of Tianyu Cave, the only two who have ascended to the realm. The so-called mountain tops of a continent are not very high. Compared with the real Huolong from Luzhou in Beiju, Lu Jubao from Aizu is far behind. Since this kid is not the direct disciple of Jing Hao or Xu Nanyuan, is he an illegitimate child? Chen Pingan said, "You can be unconvinced, or you can be dissatisfied verbally or mentally, it's up to you. I'm just stating a fact to you." After saying this, Chen Pingan shook his head and smiled to himself. It's time to find an opportunity to go to Zhenhua Mountain. Chen Pingan glanced at Gao Yi and said, "In this area north of Shirwanda Mountain and south of Old Mirage, my words are more effective than the Confucian Temple." When Gao Yi heard this, he hesitated to speak. In the end, he didn't say anything. Chen Pingan turned and left. Gao Yi grinned, stood up, stretched out his hand to rub his ribs, and he wrinkled his face in pain. The girl in the mink hat looked at the slender figure, and her strength was amazing. What kind of realm? Could it be that she is a female martial artist who has good looks and hides her secrets? Is there such a number one person in the world? Xing Qian. Is that him? Xiago suddenly turned his head and raised his hand. Gao Yi was so frightened that he leaned back and pressed against the wall. Chen Pingan calculated the time and said, "You all go your own way, and we will meet again at Luopa Mountain later. I will ask you carefully about the details of cultivation in the immortal realm." Xiago looked indifferent. It was very simple for the immortal to break through the realm and ascend. She just said doubtfully, "It doesn't look like the mountain master's behavior." Chen Pingan smiled and said, "Senior brother asked me to say some crazy words while I was young. After trying it, I found that I didn't adapt to it and it was still quite awkward. I will try to avoid it in the future if possible." Afterwards, Chen Pingan said, I may need to trouble you to keep an eye on this guy, at least 10 days and a half. Xiago understood in his heart, and he geared up and said, the mountain master suspects that he is a chess piece that has never been used in the wilderness. Lixiaozu now has an average reputation, very average. Overall, it is much worse than Fuyao continent and Jinjia continent, and only slightly better than Tongye continent. Chen Pingan nodded and said, don't forget, Gao Yi is a sword cultivator, not an ordinary chi practitioner who comes here to travel around and expand his world. The Great Wall of Sword Chi is extraordinary to Haoran sword cultivator. There are only two possibilities for a sword cultivator to say something like that here. Either he is young, he is a sect master and a swordsman, and he is so proud that he does not know how high the world is. In addition, he hates the Shaanxi sword sect so much. With the Wei family, they felt that they had endured humiliation for nearly 100 years and that revenge was just around the corner, so they got carried away and blurted out of composure. Either Gao Yi is someone who has long disagreed with the Great Wall of Sword Chi. There are two possibilities. One is that he has an excellent secret tutor and cannot deal with the Great Wall of Sword Chi. For example, Gao Yi's preacher once served in the Great Wall of Sword Chi in his early years. The Great Wall of Sword Chi and who asked the sword lost and suffered a big loss. There are many records of this type of sword cultivator in the Summer Palace. Either Gao Yi was a chess piece raised by the wild world and used to fight the internal strife in Liuxia continent. Of course it makes more sense if the two possibilities can be combined. Xiago praised, the mountain master's eyes are like a torch, and he knows everything even when he sees something. Chen Pingan glanced at Xiago, who nodded. The old deaf man spoke to his disciples from the bottom of his heart, Yoyu, when you reach Luopa mountain, you can no longer rely on your master. You may have to fend for yourself. Yoyu asked strangely, why did master say this? The old deaf boy shook his head with a grimace, without explaining that being a teacher did not fit in with the ethos of Luo Shan. Gao Yi sat back on the ground and began to breathe in and out to adjust his breath. The slap and the kick from the girl in the mink hat made his body full of vitality, but fortunately, it didn't hurt the foundation of Dao. In the inner courtyard of Gao Yi's heavenly palace, which is the so-called entrance point of Taoism, there are 3 flowers blooming, one high and one low hanging in the air. Unfortunately, there is still a long way to go before the spirit and energy can be blended into one. But among the tallest golden flowers, there is a real-life courtyard was opened, with the gate facing the east. In the far distance, the sea of clouds rolled, the water flow undulated, and a towering sacred tree stood. There were red qi and green qiu entwined on the tree. It was the avenue for Gao Yi's 2 natal flying swords. Manifestation, the sacred tree of the East China Sea, the swinging branch. In the golden flower courtyard, it was like a scene where the moon was held in the middle of the night. When Gao Yi sent out a ray of spiritual consciousness and came to the courtyard room here, someone who was leaning outdoors disappeared and he could only hear people walking by but no human form could be seen. There was a series of subtle sounds of clogs stepping on the ground outside the door. Gao Yi said with a grain of salt in his mind, he is Qin. Suddenly there was a burst of spring thunder in the sky and the earth, and the word be careful echoed repeatedly. Gao Yi was so shocked that he still didn't say the other party's name. Gao Yi, who was barefoot and with disheveled hair, walked to the threshold and said, are you so cautious across 2 worlds? What's more, you personally said that your identity is not hidden from the light, and you have made contributions to the world, so the Confucian temple will not even if I don't control it, even if I don't come to detain it, it's nothing more than losing my physical body. I need to open up a mansion in my mind, build a dojo, and keep a little bit of my true spirit alive. Seeing that the other party still showed no intention of meeting him, Gao Yi continued to ask, who is the scholar surnamed Lu that you are obsessed with? Can you still not let go of him? In an instant, Gao Yi lost all consciousness, as if he was imprisoned in a time-worn cage. It was pitch black, only his thoughts still existed. Gao Yi could only have a thought in his mind, and he bowed his head to admit his mistake with her. Suddenly, the light shone brightly. This moment his mind was free. According to the agreement, he did not dare to step out of the threshold and enter the world outside the door that she had turned into a forbidden land. Gao Yi sat cross-legged and said to himself, "It was you who said that there are still a few remaining swordsmanship channels here that are still lingering. This is where I have the opportunity. Only here can I have the opportunity to return to Liuxia continent and help you seize that sword. I have been waiting for this great opportunity for thousands of years, but as a result, I have suffered such shame and humiliation before I even climbed onto the city wall. Back then, you and I made a contract to let you escape the disaster. They said that the Lord humiliated the subject and died, so you turned a blind eye. Nowadays, opportunities abound in the world of Hauran. Compared with the time when the two worlds of Hauran and Wilderness were connected and opened, more visions are happening. Just talking about Liuxia continent, a remnant cave from ancient times has appeared recently. If it is not the Jade Pu realm, there is no way to participate in the fight. Earth immortals and their ilk dare to wade through the muddy water, and even a tooth sacrifice is not enough. It is said that Jing Hao, the Tai Bao of the Qing Palace, traveled to other continents this time in order to secretly seek help from a strong arm to stabilize the Tianyu cave. The dignified leader of Izhou Mountain did not hesitate to lower his status and hook up with the monks on the top of Bizhou Mountain. It is obvious that Jing Hao is determined to win this site. A cold voice sounded melodiously. There are roughly 3 types of ancient contracts. We are not masters and servants. You and I are just equal hosts and guests. In my opinion, you are just like a hut. I will help you. You came from an unknown royal family hostage to have this opportunity just 100 years ago. It is an opportunity that you never dared to think of before. In terms of accommodation expenses, I have already given you enough money. Gao Yi, you should not push yourself too far. I couldn't wish for more. Gao Yi put his fists on his knees, his eyes were hot, and he suddenly started to curse, calling him a prostitute and a slut. I will sleep with you sooner or later. But the other party remained the same, indifferent, and regarded his foul language and loud curses as nothing more than the chirping of cicadas in the countryside. Gao Yi said, "You people who have achieved Taoism, do you really have no emotions or desires at all? If you need to pay this price to achieve Taoism and immortality, what is the meaning of immortality?" Probably because these words aroused the other party's desire to speak, a woman in a white dress with a sword on her back appeared out of thin air outside the door. She had an extremely cold appearance. She was a female ghost that Gao Yi met when he was traveling in Huangmao Mountain when he was young. In the sky, there is a 6-foot-long golden body, showing the appearance of heaven and man. The shapes that appear are flawless and pure gold. Someone stepped into this forbidden area, but it was still like entering a deserted land. Jingdan, Baidi City is short of a man, are you interested? Jingdan bowed to the visitor with his hands folded and said without hesitation, I am willing to follow Mr. Jing to practice the Great Path. Jing Juzhou nodded and said, when the affairs of Liuxia continent are over and the debts with Gao Yi are settled, you will go to Baidi City to guard the gate. Gao Yi's mood was extremely complicated. He just looked at the man in the green shirt again. His surname was Chen. Are you nervous? Jing Juzhong asked with a smile, Mr. Chen, do you want to go to Baidi City to see it? Otherwise, when you pass by the Middle-earth Divine Continent in the future, Baidi City has been closed. It is uncertain when it will reopen. Chen Pingon shook his head, we have to go back to Aquarius Continent. Jing Juzhong nodded and said, well, see you later. Before leaving, Jing Juzhong looked at Bai Jing with a smile, fellow Taoist Bai Jing, as long as you are willing to kill strangers, you can escape the disaster and join the Tao. Chen Pingan's face was expressionless. Bai Jing grinned and said, "When I was in retreat with the old blind man, I thought of it, but this path of harmony is a bit inferior." "What do you mean?" Jing Juzhong said, "It's a pity. Since it was destined that all Taoists can be killed, and there is nothing and no one in the world that cannot be killed, all the swords that have been cut to the world are broken swords, and there are no more swordsmen in the world. Bai Jing has a chance to be among the 5 realms." Bai Jing pursed his lips. Jing Juzhong smiled and said, "I'm a poor person on the road. Why should I deceive myself? Showing others the appearance of a girl in a mink hat is to first cut off one's own mind, then cut off the strangers in the heart, 14 first, and then cut off the sword and the world with the sword. On the road, if I pray for 15 more times, why do I regret it when things come to an end?" Bai Jing wrinkled his face, feeling extremely aggrieved. He held the back of his head with both hands, then raised his head high and looked into the distance. "I don't know how to be sad in the first place. I am most afraid of seeing tenderness. Once you have seen it, you will be reluctant to part with it." Jing Juzhong nodded and said, "Such Bai Jing is Bai Jing. She is indeed the female cultivator who took the lead in the battle to reach heaven." Chen Pingan was stunned when he heard this and turned to look at Bai Jing. The first woman to reach heaven. This was the first time he heard about this. In the past, I had only heard that in the battle to reach the sky, it was the first Taoist priest in the world who opened the way to the sky, and the first male monk to enter the gate was the leader of the swordsmanship who was also one of the top 10 heroes in ancient times. There are some things a man should not say out loud. This time he left the sect and gained experience in the world of mortals. First of all, it was to let Hong Tuzan relax and stop being so lifeless. He always felt that he could not practice the magic of the immortal family, so he felt despair, which prompted him to make several things in the world. A chivalrous act to help him regain his morale. Furthermore, it was to let the direct disciple who was secretly appointed as the successor by the master behind her to see more of the world, mainly to come to a certain Taoist temple in the capital of Yushuan Kingdom to help her find an opportunity to become an immortal. It turns out that there are 3 natural red lines on her eyebrows in heaven, which are the so-called signs on the mountain that the killing calamity is too severe. Therefore, she needs to be trained in the world of mortals for a few years to lose all the evil spirits and learn a principle of concealing one's edge. Study my immortal method. All in all, the purpose is to let her know that comparison is far from enough, and to make Hong Tu feel that comparison is more than enough. The leader cannot be said to have bad intentions. Seeing that there was still a long distance between him and the guest in green shirt, the man still used the secret method of gathering sound to form a line, which was not passed down by his master, and gave instructions to the 2 juniors, Bao Shu, Hong Tu, "Let's travel the rivers and lakes when you meet a stranger for the first time. It depends on the level of the person's skills and martial arts skills. It will be easy for those who meet him, but not for those who are difficult. Remember to pay extra attention to their breathing and footsteps. For example, the person in front of you does have some martial arts skills. It's just that his face is slightly pale, his breathing is slightly stagnant, the clarity and turbidity are different, and the force of each step landing is uneven. It can be seen that he had worked hard originally, but his spirit was probably a little weaker due to excessive drinking and sex." Chen Pingan had no choice but to pretend not to hear this comment. The young woman named Bao Shu in the team is indeed suitable for practicing Taoism. It is indeed a piece of jade, with the qualifications of an earthly immortal. They probably all came into being at the right time. Such characters are now found in every corner of the world. Some major sects are busy. Nian Gonlang of the Punishment Department had secretly sent more manpower to Aquarius Continent and even Tongya Continent to look for all kinds of Taoist embryos. The 16 geniuses sent to Luopa Mountain by the Dali imperial court have already taken the military ferry and will soon arrive at Niujiao Ferry. The woman asked, "Uncle Gao, did I hear Master he say that there are immortal ferry crossings, inns and ferries in the world? As long as someone finds the exact address, they will see all the monks and chi refining gods." The man smiled and said, "To put it lightly, it's not that easy to meet. You, Master, he just accidentally met a group of chi refiners in the deserted mountain temple. I heard from the Master that since ancient times, there have been land gods and goddesses who have seen the dragon but never seen the tail. When they first learned Taoism, they were often ordered by the sect master to teach them to make an oath. They should not show their holiness casually in front of the common people, and they should not show up in the mountains. You should not use your immortality skills outside the mountains to seek fame in the world of mortals, or be greedy for worldly wealth, so as not to mislead your disciples and make them mistakenly think that refining qi and cultivating the Tao is a smooth road or a shortcut. Let's just say that the founder of our sect, even though he was a genius, he still had to go through countless hardships. When his merits were perfected, he finally perfected a flying sword. Within 100 feet, the blue light was dazzling, and he could cut off the heads of thieves and bandits at will. Like searching a bag to retrieve an object, it is easy to reverse the palm, which is already the state of the ancient swordsman. More than 200 years ago, Lao Huang experienced that a fairy mansion in the mountains with numerous fairy sites in local chronicles gradually turned into a martial arts sect that only taught fists and kicks. The few volumes of Taoism left by the founder can no longer be studied by anyone except the current leaders. Regardless of whether he has a rich family background or a master in the mountains, he is afraid that it will become an old trend. The woman looked longingly and said, "Uncle Gao, I heard that there is a Taoist priest named Wu in the capital. He is proficient in numerology and is very accurate in fortune-telling. He has the reputation of being an ironclad god. His fortune-telling stall is nearby. Shall we go and have a look?" The man smiled and said, "The person who shows his appearance in the market is not a real person, but it is unlikely that he is a god. When we go to Chongyang Temple, if you are still free, you can go to the stall and try your luck. If that person is really a strange person who is playing games in the world of mortals. Strangers are what you should be born into." In an alley, the two parties approached. Not to mention the legendary people who cultivated Taoism and became immortals. No matter how spiritual they are, they never feel sleepy. Even the people who practice martial arts and have a restrained spirit should not be so sleepy and drowsy during the day. The man looked at the other party and felt very sorry, but he did not forget to take advantage of every opportunity and warned the two juniors. He gathered his voice and said, "The founder of our sect has a saying, wine, sex, wealth, and material possessions can make people feel exhausted day and night. The peaceful family of the immortals can lead to the path to enlightenment. Sex and between men and women are the worst mistake for immortality. This person is light-footed and extremely sleepy. If the head brother is here, all he needs to do is recite the incantation, take a sip of talisman water, and spray it on his face. This will free you from the entanglement of the Sandman's nightmare and restore your mind to fullness. If you can learn to exercise restraint in the future, this person's path to martial arts will surely not stop here." The two sides passed each other. After walking out for more than 10 steps, Bao Shu laughed in a low voice. "Master is famous for his kind-heartedness. According to his temper, he will definitely stop and have a good chat with this person." People of the same generation as the head, except her master Uncle Gao Zhu, privately said that her master was a good gentleman. If you encounter injustice outside the mountains, take care of it. If you encounter an unfortunate person in the world, help him. This has affected the development of the sect and his own practice a lot, but the leader always says that suffering is a blessing. Not long after she came to the mountain, she had overheard some harsh words in the past few years, saying that the leader was too soft-hearted, weak in Taoism, and not like a Taoist, which was why he had no academic ability but no Taoist power. Deep down in her heart, she felt that these statements were correct. A person who practices Taoism must look like a person among gods and immortals. He should not put a clear Taoist heart that should be radiant in the mire and soil his own spirit. Hong Tu didn't know whether it was due to some mistake or a blessing in his heart. He suddenly turned his head and happened to see the man in blue shirt turning his head and looking towards him with a sword on his back. He looked at him. I heard a strange voice say, "If you have a leisurely time, young hero, you can look for Taoist Wu stall and figure out your future. It's very effective, and the price is fair. I'm sure you won't waste your money." Hong Tu was shocked in his heart. He saw the other person pointing at his ear, perhaps indicating the tip of his ear. He happened to overhear their conversation and talked about the fortune-telling stall. Hong Tu turned around and asked hurriedly, "Senior, please give me some advice. If someone learns martial arts late and is not a child, can he really become a martial arts master?" However, he saw the inconspicuous man in green clothes using a ladder-like technique that resembled a light soaring technique. His feet were overlapping each other in the air, and in an instant, his figure was higher than the eaves of the alley and disappeared. Traces. When Bao Shu heard the movement behind her, she turned around and took a look. She only saw the green corner of her clothes. She was not surprised and asked, "Uncle, are you a master?" The man didn't feel that he had made a mistake, and said with a smile, "The movement is not small, it is very high." Chen Pingan sat on a roof, thought for a while, and looked in the direction of Jiao Mountain, without bothering Ma Kukxuan's few disciples who were not yet mature. Repaying kindness with kindness and repaying with hatred is a matter of course. It is not only a matter of one's own family, but also a matter of the whole world. As for whether that woman, who has quite good bones and is suitable for practicing Taoism in the mountains, can become a true Taoist, it is hard to say. Not to boast, if Qin Yuanji had not met Zhu Lian and Jiang Chu had not entered Luola Mountain, he would probably have disappeared from the crowd. Forced to cheer up, Chen Pingan chose a secluded alley and fell to the ground. It had been a long time since he felt like he wanted to take a long nap until he was full. Gu Kan and his party were walking through the streets in Yongjia County. Imperial Master Huang Lai didn't know anything about it. It was his maid Gu Lingshu who helped ask for directions before they found a quiet alley. Outside the door of the small house, apart from Chen Pingan who was squatting on the steps with his hands in sleeves, there were also a group of unfamiliar faces standing, apparently chatting. Chen Pingan looked a little sluggish, and he was clearly seriously injured. This familiar scene made Gu Kan's face darken. Gu Kan walked forward slowly, asking for the result with his eyes. Chen Pingan said in his heart, "It's okay, it's an acceptable price. The night travel sword is broken, and there is still a natal robe that needs to be refined and mended. Dozens of less important Qi palaces have lost their foundation and need to be repaired. Repair. But it is not without benefits. In the long run, it will definitely not be a loss. I just took this opportunity. Ning Yao is right. Yu Pu pursues truth and is more pragmatic. When an immortal ascends to ascension, except for the last step, before reaching the bottleneck of the immortal realm, monks are more pragmatic. What's more, Chen Pingan's current path to Taoism, after passing the biggest hurdle of Yuanning's return to Yu Pu, could not be simpler. It's nothing more than sword refining. When it comes to sword refining, it's even simpler. It's just eating gold. Fine copper coins and dragon-slaying stones. Chen Pingan has already made arrangements for gold and copper coins. He will discuss with the Song family in Dali and do business with the Luzhou Luomahi Lu family and Sanlang Temple in Beiju. If a small amount adds up to a big sum, there are always ways to do it. Let's go. According to Jing Zhezhong's estimate at the time, if Qin Pingan only needs to eat another 1,500 gold coins, Jing Zhongyue can be promoted to the rank of Jingkou. With the number of flying swords differentiated, there is hope. Raising it to 800,000. If he is more optimistic, Qin Pingan can even think about the number of millions. So the real difficulty is still the dragon-slaying stone. Gold and copper coins can be considered priceless but marketless, but the dragon-slaying stone is a typical priceless and marketless one. Anyone who gets it can just cover it up, hide it, and never sell others, so at the top of Jilin Peak, even Yu Xian personally helped to make the matchmaking, but he couldn't guarantee that he would be able to help find the seller. Qin Pingan wanted to use this to refine the sword in the cage, sharpen the sword's edge, and improve his rank. One can imagine how difficult it is. Gu Kan stared at him blankly. Are you sure that Ma's family has been eradicated? Qin Pingan changed the subject. I took a temporary trip to the Sword Chi Great Wall and met your master. We chatted for a few words. Baidi City will be closed soon. He invited a female sword immortal named Jing Dan. Although the person who serves as Yen is a ghost fairy, her swordsmanship is very high and she has a great background. Her swordsmanship inheritance has been alongside Zhou Shenxi's Tsuqing lineage in recent times. Gu Kan nodded. The sword cultivator who was able to be personally invited by Jing Zhuzhong to serve as a shaman must have a strong Taoist practice. Gu Kan said from the bottom of her heart, the injury is serious. After returning to Luopa Mountain, do you need to stay in seclusion for a period of time? Qin Pingan said, it doesn't prevent me from being the best man for Lu Xianyang. Gu Kan said, if it doesn't work, let Lu Xianyang postpone the wedding banquet. Qin Pingan looked straight at Gu Kan. Gu Kan said helplessly, joking, teasing, making a joke, seriously. I'm not worried that you will harm your Taoism. If something impedes your Taoism, I'll have a few light words to help you relieve your boredom. Qin Pingan slowly stood up and introduced them one by one. I don't want you to work in vain. Let me introduce you. My pseudonym is Pu Lu, my real name is Su Fu. I am in the nascent soul realm, and there is little chance of breaking through. Guan Piao, Ghost Cultivator, Golden Core Realm, breaking through the realm is not difficult. Shen Ku, who is the bottleneck of the 7th realm of martial arts, can immediately reach the far-traveling realm. I have already negotiated with them. As long as you are willing to recruit, they can go to your side. Just take care of the food, whether they will give you a salary or not. It depends on your mood. These former masters, who were brought out of Ma Mansion by Qin Pingan, were either old gods or great masters. They had each had a meal before. Gu Kan introduced Huang Lai, who had just been recruited by his side. Huang Lai, he has just resigned from the post of national advisor. Qin Pingan clasped his fists and said with a smile, I have met Senior Huang. Huang Lai looked solemn and returned the courtesy solemnly. How can a little golden elixir be worthy of the title of senior? If you practice Taoism and live forever, those who have mastered it are the first. I have met Mr. Qin. Qin Pingan laughed dumbly. Gu Lingyan couldn't help but sneer, oh, hey, I can help you give a unique insight to the word, sir. Mr. Huang is so good at flattering others, no wonder he can become a national master. Qin Pingan asked, where are the others? Now that Gu Kan is here, Lu Xianyang is definitely indispensable. Gu Kan smiled and said, this guy went to Jinwu Mountain to block the door. Qin Pingan rubbed his eyebrows. Gu Kan said, let me state in advance that it was his idea for us to come to Yexuangguo to meet together this time. I can only be a helper. Qin Pingan said angrily, you are loyal. Gu Kan chuckled and said, I'm used to selling him. Qin Pingan is used to it. Gu Kan said, Pei Qian is here too and is currently at the Qinghuang Temple in the capital. Before Qin Pingan could say anything, Gukan said first, it's Lu Xianyang's intention. Seeing that Chen Pingan still wanted to talk, Gukan, who was familiar with his temperament, immediately asked a key question from the bottom of his heart: what kind of crimes did they suffer in Ma Mansion? They are almost reduced to walking zombies who are just dragged by the thread of soul. It's a mess. If I don't find a few bottles of panacea for them, and quickly stabilize their minds and souls, the sequelae will be too great. Gu Kan is a bystander, and his realm and master's biography are all there. On the other hand, Pu Lu and several insiders are not aware of their current dangerous situation. Chen Pingan roughly explained, except for the relatively good spying on ghosts, the other two are not fuel-efficient lamps. I helped them tailor several small methods, setting up minefields, and giving them fire punishments. The warriors passed the test and used some tricks. Discipline. It's good that you don't miss it when you're passing by, but it's good that you give it a small punishment or a big warning if you bump into it. Gukan couldn't help but laugh and gloated. It's okay if Shenku survives. After all, he is a martial artist. What about Pu Lu and Guan Piao? Even if the old woman had no chance to join Yupu in the first place, the problem is that she now has a great opportunity. She dares to retreat, dare to break through the realm, dare to face her inner demons. Chen Pingan said, in the future, as long as they hope to break through seclusion, if you write a letter, I will help them, cut off all their memories, as if they have never seen me, and it will not hurt their Tao roots. It just cleared the memory. Gu Kan stopped talking about the matter, changed the subject and asked, would you like me to use the 3-mountain talisman to go to Zhenwu Mountain and call Lu Xianyang over? Chen Pingan nodded and said, then you go and come back quickly, I will be lazy and wait for you here. Lu Xianyang once overturned Lu Chen's fortune-telling stall and clamored to beat him every time he saw him. In the past, he didn't know the identity of the Taoist priest with the lotus crown, so he wasn't afraid. Now, even though he knew it was Lu Qin, Lu Xianyang was still not afraid at all. After Gukan left, Chen Pingan took out a talisman from his sleeve, turned it into a stream of colors, and quickly swept out of the house. When the talisman landed on the ground, it was Wu Di, a middle-aged Taoist, who was already in Chongyang Temple. Outside the wall. The main reason is that he is worried that Gu Ken is inadvertently involved in some kind of cause and effect. Chen Pingan needs to find out and see it with his own eyes before he can rest assured. Besides, when he met those Shanjiao people in the Tianshui Hutong, Chen Pingan felt that this matter could be big or small. According to his custom, he still wanted to see to believe. Gu Lingyan just pretended not to know the reason. The hometown is wild and there are no rules, but there is no shortage of pride. Because of the lack of calculation, the kind of life-or-death friendship might be more than Howren's. But this was the first time she had seen such a relationship between Gu Kan and Chen Pingan. The old woman and several old members of the Ma family were still speculating on the identity of the young man in Confucian shirts. Although I have been assigned a place, I will probably have to follow that young man to earn a living, but as long as I don't follow Mr. Chen to Luopa Mountain, that's fine. Before Gu Kan left, he glanced at Huang Lai. You've knocked someone on me twice while I've been here. When I'm not here, if you still dare to act like this, I will accept you as a worshipper and then clean up the house on the same day. This kind of thing cannot be done by others, but I, Gu Kan, can do it very casually. Huang Lai seemed to feel guilty and quickly nodded in greeting. Don't worry, I will never give Sect Master Gu another chance to misunderstand. Inside Chongyang Temple, the scenery is quiet. In the setting sun, the red ochre water turns into paper, with patterns like runes, and the fish in the pond seem to be in a Taoist book, with the words "eatable gods" written in it. A solitary bird rushes into the waves, its shadow floating in the air. An old Taoist priest with a fluttering beard came up. Qing Fengxian, who turned out to be the owner of this place, noticed something strange in the temple. The old Taoist counted the cause and effect, and it was a mess. It was difficult to say good or bad for the time being, so he stopped his Taoist studies and walked out of the simple thatched hut. The old Taoist steps on the square steps, very majestic. What he saw was a middle-aged Taoist priest admiring the scenery by the water. I don't know if they are peers or fellow travelers. The old Taoist was not sure of the other party's intention for a moment. If the Taoist temple was closed all year round, there were no friends in the capital who came to visit, and no faithful men and women who came here to burn incense. So the other party either climbed over the wall uninvited, or he is a Taoist who really has magical powers. He can shrink the earth's veins and move mountains and rivers thousands of miles away. Cheng Fengxian looked around and came up with a guess. He asked with a smile, but the Taoist priest Wu who sets up a stall in Higher Lane in Yongjia County, Wushengua. Just by looking at the opponent's attire, one cannot tell which lineage of the mountain he belongs to. Chen Pingan nodded with a smile and said straight to the point, Wu Di, a poor Taoist, does not have a Taoist name. I just heard from a friend that Master Qingguan's Taoist name is Hui Lu. I have lived here for many days and passed by Guiguan several times. Because I didn't dare to disturb him, I didn't come to visit him. But today I heard that my friend mentioned Qing Jinren, and most of his words were filled with admiration for the master. I was afraid of missing a Taoist senior, so I had the courage to come here to talk about it. Cheng Fengxian stroked his beard and smiled, and said narrowly, how can I take my self-proclaimed Taoist title seriously? Isn't Taoist Wu Wu so frightened? Or does he regard this poor Taoist as a villain and plan to ask for reward from the county government? Chen Pingan said, the master of the temple is joking. Cheng Fengxian was too lazy to talk around with this person. He was upright and was not afraid of slanting shadows. After all, good time was limited and he should not waste it in such vain and arrogant things. He said directly, people in the Ming dynasty don't tell secrets. I dare to ask Taoist Wu whether he came here to explore the secluded scenery and enjoy the scenery. Or should we discuss Taoism and weigh the weight of a poor Taoist? If we say that his colleagues are enemies, he lives in seclusion in Chongyang Temple, concentrates on refining elixirs, has 2 disciples, and has nothing to do with the world. There is no reason to conflict with this fellow Taoist who is setting up a stall to make money. Chen Pingan smiled and said, I would like to ask, is the ancestor of Master Qingguan's family from the Luguan sect? Cheng Fengxian was silent for a moment, then sighed deeply, showing a slightly sentimental look. I never thought that fellow Taoist Wu would still know about such ancient things. To be honest, Pindao did come from a branch of the Luguan sect, but it was not orthodox. It has the same origin but different flows. The source of water has long been gone. Cheng Fengxian pretended to be calm, and was amazed in his heart. The Taoist friend in front of him was so blessed that he could actually have a relationship with that Lord Tong. This kind of thing, especially in the Huashan realm, you don't dare to talk nonsense and put gold on your face, otherwise are you really not afraid of being struck by lightning? In fact, Cheng Fengxian was not only surprised, but also frightened, just because his most important batch of elixirs was originally scheduled to be fired at noon during the Dragon Boat Festival this year. It was named Wuxia Fish in the Ancestral Elixir Book, and it was a batch of elixirs. As long as the medicine is successful, no more, no less, there are only 2 pills, one is indispensable without one, and even more cannot be achieved with more. The 2 pills just divide the yin and yang. But the old Taoist was not sure about this, just because he was missing one of the most important medicinal materials, even though he had put all his efforts into choosing the site of Chongyang Temple as a cauldron, and found a noon couplet as the winning weapon. However, there is still a lack of vital alchemy items, which results in the alchemy furnace being unable to achieve the kind of water leakage described in the alchemy book even though the fire is being lit. If one could burn a piece of immortal mugwort, it would be like setting off a fire in a steamer and transporting it to the temple for years of water transport. Isn't it? God's blessing. The reason why the old Taoist didn't look happy was that he didn't know the quality of the mugwort at the door of the ghost house. What is the firepower after burning? The old Taoist became more and more frightened and doubtful. Could it be that meeting the Taoist priest Wu Di today was due to a mysterious Taoist fate? If you really agree to what the other party said, it should bear fruit and come to fruition. Chen Pingan's original intention was to first help the temple owner and Shui Rui to connect, so that the two parties could take care of each other and form a romantic relationship. If there are any difficulties in Chongyang Temple in the future, Shui Rui, Tong Wenchang, and Chen Pingan will be able to weigh in on whether to help and how to help. Chen Pingan was also surprised and asked seemingly casually, Pin Dao once met a poor young man from a foreign country named Bai Yun. He and his grandfather used to sell pictures of spring cows together. Passing by the stall, Pin Dao helped him make a prediction. He was I wondered if Master Jing has ever seen this young man with the Shan Yuan Dharma. Cheng Fengxian shook his head, I never leave home and have never seen this young man. But the old Taoist quickly added, Pindo's two disciples occasionally go shopping in the market, so they might have seen this person. Chen Pingan looked as usual and said with a smile, I originally thought that this fate of the immortal family would fall on Guanzhu Qing and Chongyang Guan, but now it seems that may not be the case. This is the advantage of having a high level, and the secret words in the hearts of others are as loud as thunder. The mugwort hanging at the door was given to Shui Rui by Lu Qin before, so that Chen Pingan's fight with Ma Kushuan would not make too much noise and accidentally hurt her soul as a ghost. Lu Qin came to Howren this time, and he was busy looking for the noon fish that was hard to catch for the gods, which was the later young Ning Ji and now Chen Pingan's direct disciple. Could it be that according to the original context, Ning Ji, who had not been discovered by Lu Qin and Chen Pingan, would enter this Chongyang temple, and the young man would gain the favor of Qing Fengxian, worship him as his teacher, and step by step, eventually embark on the path of spiritual cultivation? Chen Pingan laughed dumbly. Does this count as cutting off half measures and stealing the opponent's proud disciple? Did Lu Qin reach this level long ago and wanted to use that mugwort as compensation to indirectly help the old Taoist achieve perfection in alchemy? To settle a cause and effect. It seems that next time I travel to the Middle-earth Divine Continent, in addition to the Tianshi Mansion in Longhu Mountain, if I have the chance, I will also go to the Lu family in Middle-earth to borrow books and read. Chen Pingan smiled and said, it won't hinder the owner of the temple from entertaining guests. The old Taoist asked in confusion, why do fellow Taoists come to say this? People of the Taoist sect are most particular about collecting the spirit, and will not easily release their spiritual consciousness. According to legend, only the Taoist sect who has stepped into the state of sensing between heaven and man cannot move the mind, but can communicate with the mind and be able to sense the outside world. The slightest change between heaven and earth. At this time, a tall but handsome young Taoist boy ran quickly to the waterside, slapped his head, and panted, Master Jing, we have another visitor. Qing Fengxian smiled and praised, Wu Daoyu is really a prophet of the future. Perhaps because he noticed the playful look in Taoist Master Wu's eyes, the old Taoist felt a little ashamed. The food in his Taoist temple was indeed not full of oil and water on weekdays. The old Taoist priest likes purity, and while refining alchemy, he is most afraid of the intrusion of the mortal world. Taoist temples are closed all year round to thank guests. They cannot steal or rob, and they are not willing to cheat and deceive. They have no side wealth, so how can they get extra money? Besides, it is difficult to practice Taoism. How can it be what a blessing? There is a huge stone outside the pavilion, the top of which seems to have been cut into a platform with a sharp tool. Sitting on the stone platform was a burly middle-aged Taoist with a curly beard and skin glowing with the color of mud and fat jade. He seemed to be exhaling and exhaling. There were 2 lines of white smoke hanging from his nose, like a white snake hanging on the wall. There was water around him. It was foggy, and when the Taoist suddenly opened his eyes were gleaming with light, so terrifying. The burly Taoist priest spread out his palms, looked at the lines, discerned the mountains, and looked at the 4 seas. Since he is a person who can see the mountains and rivers, the key is that he can also look at the qi at the same time. Numerology is in the dark, people and things are as new as before, and there are no doubts everywhere, everything is like the past. There is a pair of boys and girls sitting in the pavilion. Both of them are so beautiful that they forget the vulgarity. The handsome young man with a dragon beard and bangs, with a face like a crown of jade, sword-shaped eyebrows and starry eyes, with a long sword across his knees at this moment, can be included in the book and become a talented man or a young knight. There is a girl beside her who is charming and beautiful. Her appearance is so beautiful that people are at a loss for words. They were not surprised to see this scene. This master, whom they had just met for less than a year, once learned the nose-locking technique from an unknown stranger from ancient times. It's just that they have all kowtowed too much and learned skills from their masters, but they still don't know their master's name or sect. Is this a weird rule unique to the gods on the mountain? Moreover, the master only said that he was honoring the order of his sect and was going to Huzhou, northwest of Dali, to save a person who was born with immortal roots and bring him back to the mountains. He would definitely be able to bring glory to the sect one day. As a gift for accepting disciples, the Taoist priest once gave them a gift, 1 long sword and 1 short sword. He took off the long sword and gave it to the young disciples. It was about 3 feet 4 inches long. The sword bag is old, colorful, and beautifully carved. However, the master did not reveal the name of the sword. He only said that it was a famous sword from ancient times. It was forged by a real person on land in a great mountain. He blew the hair on the edge and cut iron like mud. This sword can be bent and stretched, and only needs to be wrapped around the waist when not in use. It was once a sharp weapon used by Taoists for self-defense in the early days of mountain climbing. No matter how ignorant the young man is, he still knows that it is a treasure. Normally, he only needs to pull out the long sword 2 feet from the sword pouch, and he will feel the crystal light shining in his eyes. The foxy girl who pretended to be Gu Kan's personal maid turned out to be a female cultivator from the wilderness, whose name is Chen Xiao. As for how she came to follow Gu Kan, from the wilderness to the vast world, even the main church didn't know how she cultivated the path. She just couldn't find it out, and she said there was no need to check it again. Senior Brother Lu, do you think it's strange? The burly Taoist priest said, the really important news is not about Gu Kan and Chen Xiao, but about the Taoist priest Wu Di who just left here. The woman in the green skirt's eyes lit up, anything to say. How could he be more important than Gu Kan and Chen Xiao? The Taoist priest revealed the secret with 1 word, this person's true identity is one of the talisman clones of Lord Qin of Luopa Mountain. The woman in green skirt asked, is he going to take revenge on the Ma family? The burly Taoist priest said, the revenge has been avenged. The previous vision in the sky is proof that Ma Kukxuan's body has died and his Taoism has disappeared. The woman in green skirt asked doubtfully, how did you recognize it? As for Ma Kukxuan's death, she was not too surprised. She just couldn't believe that Ma Kukxuan's end died like this. This news was really unbelievable. You must know that many people in the outside world are extremely optimistic that Ma Kukxuan will rise to the top within 100 years. It doesn't matter to her, why should she meddle in so many other things? The Taoist priest said, Gu Kan left with his front foot, and Wu Di arrived with his back foot. Is it difficult to guess? The woman in the green skirt had a strange look on her face and was a little worried. I'm just going to tell you why the girl Gongsun lost her aura out of thin air. Could it be because of him? A certain landscape travel book that sold extremely well and was banned again has deceived many spectators. The case of Qin Ping, the master of Qin Ping, has been a ruthless master since he was young. The Taoist priest said, "Do you still want to help such an abandoned disciple with a weak character return to the disciples?" The woman in green skirt sighed quietly, unwilling to tangle with senior brother Liu on this topic. Although they are called brothers and sisters, they are from the same family but from different backgrounds. She remembered the business and asked in her heart, Uncle Qing still can't wake up and remember his previous life. The main hall has asked about this, how should I reply? The middle-aged Taoist priest nodded and said, Uncle Cheng's cultivation was too smooth in his last life and his blessings were profound. In this life, it has become a burden and it is more difficult to gain enlightenment. If you return to the main hall, you don't have to expect that Uncle Qing can return to the mountain for at least 200 years. She sighed and rubbed her eyebrows. In his last life, Uncle Qing was already in the ascension realm at this age. I am now the immortal of the golden pill, so I am so complacent. An expert once made a very vivid metaphor. Uncle Qing is a cornucopia of wealth and prosperity that comes to him without asking for luck. Yu Xian from Zhongtu, Wei Shi from Azu, He Xiaoliang from Aquarius, and Huang Ting from Tongya are all such people. She then became a little worried. Uncle Cheng's foundation will not be broken by that Gu Can, right? She didn't want to have any entanglement with Baidi City. In fact, it's not her, it's anyone else. The burly Taoist priest shook his head and said, no matter how talented Gu Can is, he still doesn't have this kind of vision. She asked, can't Gu Can see that? Where is that person? It's true that Uncle Qing has self-proclaimed his Taoist title Hui Lu, which can easily make people suspicious. The Taoist priest thought for a while. Uncle Qing is blessed with good fortune and strong Taoism. Even if he is confused, he can isolate the secrets of heaven on his own. Just like the protection of the martial arts master's fist, each has its own divine help. Master Chen has just entered the realm of Wangqi, so he should not recognize it. Out. She breathed a sigh of relief and said tentatively, that girl Bao Shu is so qualified, why don't you give it to your junior sister, senior brother? Bao Shu is the nickname of the woman from Huzhou, and her full name is Yuan Chaoxian. In the secret book of the main hall, it has an excellent rating. He is a talent that all three branches of the school want to compete for. Seeing that the senior brother was unwilling to talk to him at all, the woman in the green skirt continued to persuade him, you have accepted Fengqing and Jing Ding as your apprentices, so you should let the junior sister get some light. I have been busy in Luzhou, Beiju these years, there is hard work even without merit, it's time to recruit a good and promising apprentice. It is a gentleman's business to give credit to beauty. The burly Taoist priest said calmly, it's a pity that I am a swordsman and a Taoist. The woman in green skirt suddenly became speechless. He suggested, you can take advantage of Uncle Qing to recover his past life memories and ask him to make Song Juchuan or Zhong Shan your disciple. The woman in green skirt laughed angrily when she heard this and said, Senior brother Liu, when can our lineage accept male disciples? It turns out that her lineage has always adhered to the ancestral precepts and passed down the inheritance from female to male. Otherwise, she really wouldn't mind asking Qing Fengxian for an apprentice. It should be noted that in ancient times, there was a deity in Zhongshan, and the Taoist name was Zhuyin. It was not under the jurisdiction of the Confucian temple. According to legend, the Taoist temple formed its own heaven and earth. This king saw it as day when he opened his eyes, and night when he closed his eyes. Later, he was beheaded by his best friend, the sword immortal, and he prayed for his salvation and transformation, so that he could become a human body in the next life. At that time, the person who handed him the sword to help him escape was none other than Pei Min, one of Howren's 3 masters of swordsmanship. She suddenly asked, "Why did Uncle Ching come to Aquarius continent to make elixirs?" The Taoist priest seemed to say perfunctorily, "There is God's will in the dark." There was a moment of silence. The woman in the green skirt was in a depressed mood. "He is the only person I have misjudged." She was a little depressed. She originally thought highly of him, but she didn't expect that she underestimated him in the end. If you hadn't made a mistake back then and met him in Luzhou, Beiju, the world might not be the same as it is now. The Taoist priest smiled a little and said, "Besides, junior sister Xiao, your so-called high opinion doesn't seem to be much higher. He is just a warrior in the far-traveling realm. And he is sure that he can only have one in his life. 2 flying swords on the 1st and 15th day of the lunar month." The woman in the green skirt avoided the important and took the easy, and said with a helpless expression, "A martial artist from the 8th realm is just a Chinese cabbage." The Taoist priest asked, "Is there any other news from the main hall?" The woman in the green skirt nodded and said, "Someone came back here from the colorful world. Someone once saw her sword shining like a rainbow, traveling across the sea." Looking at her direction, she was heading to Fuyao Island. Although he only said, "someone," the Taoist priest knew it well. The Taoist priest seemed to realize something and turned to look at her. She nodded. That Ning Yao probably broke through again and again. Even though his Taoist heart was as firm as that of a burly Taoist priest, when he learned about this, he inevitably looked dazed for a moment and said softly, "Terrible." She nodded and said, "It's unreasonable to break through like this." She left the Great Wall of Sword Qi. In just a few years, nascent soul broke through to Yupu, killed ancient gods and immortals, and defeated Taoist ancestors in a battle of swordsmanship. The closed disciples had no power to fight back, they ascended, and now they are. She sighed heavily and said helplessly, "I really can't go on talking about it. It's so irritating when I compare myself to others. It makes others feel discouraged." She then smiled and said, "I have become the best in the world. Even across the world, I can still come and go when I want. It's really free." The burly Taoist priest suddenly stood up. As he stood up, he became taller and taller. He was actually a head taller than the man from the north of Aquarius continent. He said in a deep voice, "The girl stood still, we are far away." She couldn't take her eyes away, as if she had seen some exaggerated scene, with a look of wonder on her face. Xiao Pu said, "I was lucky enough to see the fighting style of Master Chen and the group of Bai Yan cavalry and Jela mountain assassins from a distance in Luzhou, Beiju." Chen Pingan said, "Not long ago, the surrounding wild monks outside Tuiyue mountain saw the fighting from a distance, and they probably felt the same way." Xiao Pu didn't seem to hear the strangeness in the young swordsman's words, and continued, "Back then, Master Chen's realm was not high, but his spiritual consciousness was extraordinary. At that time, Chen Pingan was traveling with Sui Jingqing. On horseback, he did feel a little strange. There was no clue, just an intuition of the crisis." Chen Pingan remained silent. It takes effort to speak. Lu Taoji seemed to feel that it was not appropriate for him to condescend to talk to Master Qin, so he fell down with a huge boulder because of the inappropriateness of etiquette. Both those who clean up wrongs and those who borrow swords are extremely mysterious. And compared to the latter, the avenger is more cunning and unknown to the world. Just like the assassin praised in Bai Ye's poem, he truly kills people in 10 steps and leaves no one behind. So much so that even Liang Shuang, the great heavenly master outside Longhu Mountain, and a great mountain monk like Lao Zhenren had to ask Xiao Tianlai to learn some inside information. For example, among the 3 lines of the winning of wrongs, they are the swordsman Shishan Jianin, the almost all-female assassins Cherry Qingyi, and the last group of generals who hold high positions and important temples in the 8 continents. This lineage has generally become the Bolsa man, is also known as the tinker. It is true to say that Yu Qing is not simple. Before this, Chen Pingan only knew the real surname of Ma Mansion's, cook lady Yu Qing. She was Gong's son. She was a former vindicator, but she was not from the Xishan Jianin lineage. Because of violating the rules, she was expelled and lost her status as a wrongdoer. Only then did she have a contract with Ma Kuxuan. She was tricked into working as a free coolie somewhere without wages, and was also imprisoned from time to time. Xiao Xing harassed him. It turns out that she is still Xiao Pu's disciple. Earlier, Qin Bai took the initiative to find Chen Pingan and opened the skylight to speak frankly. The Xishan Jianin lineage, whose identity and actions are extremely secretive, once wanted to put the general helm in Aquarius continent. Later, according to Cui Dongshan's additional statement, Lu Taozi's lineage of purifiers ostensibly had a dispute with the Dali punishment department that did not lead to any loss of life. Both sides hold their own opinions. The meaning of the Dali punishment department is very simple. It is up to the Dali dynasty to decide whether they should kill and when. In the final analysis, Lu Taozi and Cui Chan have different governance concepts. Qin Bai once took the initiative to invite Chen Pingan to be the chief guest minister of the Xishan Jianin lineage in Tonggishao, and was even willing to recommend Chen Pingan to become the supreme guest minister of the main hall of the wrongful persons together with his senior brother Lu Taozi. Qin Bai's so-called junior sister, Xiao Pu, was the one who cut off the head of the late emperor of the Yu dynasty of Tonggishao with her own hands. In fact, the most significant thing about Qin Bai at that time was her statement that there are also dead men in the rest of the world. This means that the Manhuang, Qingming and Wucai worlds must all have secret chests belonging to the three veins of the wrong-washing people, but the lines are just different in length. But even so, Chen Pingan still pretended not to understand what Qin Bai said. Qin Bai was also an upright and cheerful person, so when he saw this scene, he didn't say another word. Xiao Pu had nothing to say, and Chen Pingan didn't want to talk. Lu Taozi has a special status and must carefully consider every word, and words should not be too casual. There was a moment of silence. It was Chen Pingan who was the first to break the silence. Ma Yueme of the Ma family. Among the female swordsmen she trained, there is one named Chun Wen. Is she the one that Senior Xiao has chosen? Xiao Pu was full of energy and was worthy of being a young hidden official who was good at seeing subtle things. She nodded and said, Mr. Chen's expectation is correct. She is indeed one of the candidates. Chen Pingan continued to ask, enshrined in Qing, she was once one of the cherry green clothes. Xiao Pu said, her real name is Gong Sun Lingling, and I had high hopes for her. However, she was expelled from the Zhulan Hall because of a trial where she did not distinguish between public and private matters, vented her anger and killed indiscriminately, causing harm to others and violating the precepts. There are 3 lines of purifiers. In addition to the 3 hall leaders who perform their own duties, there are 2 leaders in the main hall, with no distinction in terms of status and authority. They are respectively the one who holds the situation and the one who holds the lantern. The Uncle Qing mentioned by Lu Taozi and Xiao Pu is the latter. Before the rise of the Fire Dragon Master, he was the #1 fire master in the world. It turns out that their assassination methods are divided into day and night. One is to kill in public in broad daylight. Revenge for the weak, redress the injustice, and see the light of day again. One is to sneak around at night and kill people quietly and covertly. Even if the night falls, the truth is still clear. Chen Pingan looked at Lu Taozi and said with a smile, I don't seek fame or fortune. I wander around in the world of mortals, find people to save, help people in danger and rescue those in distress, and do justice for heaven. It is indeed respectable. Lu Taoji said with a smile on his face, there is a long way to go. Xiaopu felt that there was something in Chen Pingan's words, and it didn't sound like a good word. In this matter, the young Hamid official has a good reputation. Chen Pingan asked, it is said that Shishan Jianyan's lineage was sent out of the country by my senior brother as a gift? To say something sarcastic. If I didn't really recognize what you are doing, why would I be willing to talk to you here so much? Lu Taoji did not hide the matter and exposed his shortcomings. I had a discussion with Cui Chan about governing the country. Unfortunately, we were not in the same camp. In the end, Cui Chan thought that I was an old acquaintance with someone. That's why he didn't kill our Shishan Jianinitong. Facts have proved that Cui Han is right. Chen Pingan hesitated for a moment, but still didn't say anything. There are not many people who can be regarded as friends by Senior Cui. Lu Taoji said, I once met a scholar named Shui in the Middle-earth Divine Continent. I don't know why he was sometimes sober and sometimes confused. However, our words were congenial and our personalities were compatible. We walked a journey together through mountains and rivers and traveled together for several times. It was a moonlit night and we drank a lot on the road. Neither of us asked about each other's identity, nor were we curious to explore. When we parted, we still only knew each other's last names. Speaking of this, Lu Taoji showed a little sadness. I was just wondering about something. As a scholar, Mr. Cui has great knowledge, but his boxing skills are even higher. I recall those days when the world was covered with snow, and I would travel alone with my sword. We would meet by chance, and we would feel like old friends at first sight. We would go to a restaurant together if we wanted to ask what was on our mind. Chen Pingan corrected him, Senior Cu's boxing skills are extremely high, but he has never surpassed his knowledge. Lu Taoji nodded. When I mentioned this matter to Mr. Chin, I had absolutely no intention of using emotion because I couldn't do it with reason. Chen Pingan smiled and said, Senior is worrying too much. Lu Taoji then continued, although junior sister Qin failed to persuade Mr. Chin, I still refuse to give up. To be honest, even if Mr. Chen doesn't come today, I will go to Luoluo Mountain very soon. Chen Pingan shook his head and said, Senior, with my good intentions, I am exempt from being an official. Lu Taoji hesitated to speak. Chen Pingan said, if it's just to bring up old things and chat about the past, I would like to personally invite Senior here to have a drink at Luoluo Shansula. Lu Taoji shook his head instead. Is there really no room for negotiation? Chen Pingan said, if anything, we are already drunk by now. Bargaining with others is not my specialty. Xiao Put stretched out a finger and raised his eyebrows. Chen Pingan turned his head and glanced at the girl. Jing Ding pretended to be calm and smiled shyly. Chen Pingan just smiled and didn't care about anything with her. Like Pei Qian, she seems to have the ability to see through other people's minds, or is it because of the magical power of her natal flying sword? If we say that the Taoist cultivators on the top of the mountain are all quietly fighting for the crossing, they are all carrying buckets to collect water according to their own means. So now all the major sects in the world are robbing people, overtly or covertly. Fight for those who have become famous and are on the mountain to immediately strengthen the sect. Of course, we also fight for the embryos of monks who have not yet entered the mountain to deepen their foundation and strive to achieve success gradually over hundreds of years. For example, Qi Tingji's Dragon Elephant Sword sect is competing with the young Hamid official for the group of sword immortals hiding in the wild world. Of course, this is a battle between gentlemen, and it is far from causing a red-faced incident. He also wants to fight with Fu Shi, the first disciple of Jing Juzhong in Baidi City, to the sword immortal Su Jun, Su Xia from Liuxia continent, hoping that he can serve as the leader of the sect. Fu Jin also personally approached Wei Jin and invited him to join him, but was rejected by Wei Jin. However, Wu Shu, a martial artist at the end of Tongyi's Hao, had agreed to serve as the chief guest. What's more, Luopa Mountain also snatched an old deaf boy as the new general worshipper. Qingping Sword Sect also snatched 2 private swords from Jianqi Great Wall, Xin Yun and Lu Shui. To be honest, Shanzhu Qin and Luopa Shan are firmly on the Daoyutai. If you have the ability, why don't you grab Xiaomo and Xiego from me? Moreover, Chen Pingan and Ning Ji, his newly acquired disciple, are the disciples who learn and master whatever the master knows and teaches. It's just that Chen Pingan never thought that robbing people would all be done to me. If I remember correctly, the last person to recruit me seemed to be Han Yushu, the immortal sect leader of Wanyao sect. If he hadn't become the Grand Master of Greatly, Lu Taoji and the others probably wouldn't have come to see him. Chen Pingan focused more on Ning Ji. As Chen Pingan guessed, Ning Ji, whose pseudonym is Bai Yun, will most likely be brought into this Taoist temple by his friend Zhong Shan, and then be qualified by the temple owner Qing Fengxian, who will spend all his money to teach Taoism. From then on, the young man will climb mountains and break through. He is extremely fast and can ride extremely fast, far ahead of his peers. Xiaopu said with a smile, Master Chen Shan, since you are not just the chief guest of Shishan Jianin or Tao Tingyi Qingyi, then I must explain to you clearly that the position of supreme guest of the main hall is not yours. The kind of false title on the mountain that I think has great authority. He is one of only 3 people in the sect who can know everyone's identity. Chen Pingan said, Oh. Xiaopu was speechless for a moment. You've just become the Grand Master of Greatly, so you're so arrogant. Even if you refuse to appreciate it and don't even bother to say a few polite words. Chen Pingan said, I just refuse to serve as the newly established criminal officer of the Zhongta Confucian Temple. Xiaopu was stunned for a moment, and she couldn't say another word. Lu Taoji said with a smile. Xiaopu secretly stared at Mr. Qin for a while, hoping that Mr. Qin would not be angry because of it. Chen Pingan said, When a good person walks on the road, he is just like protecting others. Why are others angry? Xiaopu was obviously very surprised by this answer. Lu Taoji suddenly said a digression, I have a question, please ask fellow Taoist for help. Chen Pingan said slowly, any questions will be answered. What is practice? As if nothing happened. Upon hearing this answer, Lu Taozi's eyes lit up. Xiaopu chewed these 4 simple words carefully and felt that the aftertaste was endless. Chen Pingan clasped his fists and said, just say goodbye. Lu Taoji returned the gift with his hand. Chen Pingan turned around and left, then suddenly turned around and said, Senior brother did not say that you can return to Aquarius continent. Lu Taoji was caught off guard by the Huima shot, and for a moment he didn't know how to respond. Xiaopu answered helpfully, but Cui Chan didn't say he couldn't return to Aquarius continent. Lu Taoji knew something was wrong. As expected. Senior brother Cui is no longer here. Chen Pingan stopped and turned around, paused for a moment, and said with a smile, in Aquarius continent, regardless of north or south, I have the final say on many things. Sword of Coming Chapter 1224. Chapter 1224. A sword can defeat one person, a man of enlightenment and a swordsman. It seems that he can kill heaven and earth with just one word. Xiaopu was silent, and she was instantly sure that the previous desperate fight in Ma Mansion was definitely not Yu Pu versus Yu Pu, plus additional martial arts versus magical powers, as they had estimated. It's immortal versus immortal. Regarding the cost of borrowing realms and Taoism from Master Bai Yu Jinglu, Xiaopu and senior brother Lu had their own estimates. Even if Chen Pingan was a martial artist at the end of the realm, she still felt that he would definitely fall to the cave realm in one breath. Senior brother Lu said that Chen Pingan's martial arts physique was unusual. In Tongizhao, he was the strongest and had reached the highest level of martial arts. he had a chance to help Chen Pingon stop his downward spiral. Stop when you reach the golden elixir. Lu Taoji had no choice but to help smooth things over, explaining, the vindicated people who were expelled by Cui Han were just our Xishan Jianin lineage and had nothing to do with Qin Bai and Xiaopus lineage. Their origins in Aquarius continent go, and you are not bound by the rules of the Great Li. If it were not for Xishan Jianin and Yingying Qingyi, who need to respect the orders of the main hall and have someone take turns to protect Master Qing, Lu would not have set foot on Aquarius continent again. Chen Pingon corrected with a smile, it's just a gift to leave the country, not to mention expulsion. Senior brother Cui is very polite to Xishan Jianin's lineage. Xiao Pu had an upright character and couldn't bear to hear such yin and yang. She almost added fuel to the fire by saying, how can the Great Li dynasty, which only has half of the continent left, care about the affairs in the south? Lu Taoji first reminded Xiao Pu from his heart to keep his Taoist heart and not make mistakes. Then he continued to explain, Xiao Pu broke through Yuaning seclusion back then. The process was extremely dangerous. Her inner demons manifested. She was a woman with a destiny from her previous life. A man surnamed Qin. Later, during an assassination, Xiao Pu was chopped into pieces by a certain swordsman. In the boundary of Nagku City, she still failed to escape from the swordsmanship and became a ghost. So today I met Qin Jianxian, she just lost her temper. The inner demon was a man named Qin, but the one who cut off his true form was the swordsman named Qin. Now he had to deal with a man named Qin again, which was really uncomfortable. When Lu Taoji mentioned the sad past, the woman in the green skirt snorted coldly. Old things are old things, but for Xiao Pu, who has a stubborn personality, one thing after another is just like the events before him. Xiao Pu immediately looked desolate and said cruel words in the market, always saying that if you don't take revenge, you won't be a human being, but she is a ghost, but she still can't take revenge. It would not be wrong to say that we are not together. It is true that she is a ghost, and her enemy is still a living person, and they have different paths. But now she is still walking in broad daylight, but he has long since disappeared elsewhere. Xiao Pu crossed the line several times, using his merits with the main hall in exchange for 2 or 3 pieces of information, and always using his charisma in exchange for guidance. Unfortunately, he still struggled to find him. No, according to this statement, it is indeed death and death, in the literal sense. In front of Chen Pingon, he took a trip to Yushuan Kingdom and had his revenge avenged. As for her, if a person compares with another person, it will irritate a person to death. If a ghost compares with a ghost will irritate to death. Chen Pingon said, Chen Pingon, a Taoist cultivator and swordsman, can understand it, but junior brother Cui Han and the new national master of Dili do not accept it. He glanced at Xiao Pu, who was from the cherry green lineage. Even the Minister of Criminal Affairs of a country refused. You want me to be a county magistrate. If the invitation or persuasion fails, you will still feel that you are not knowledgeable and will not give you face. Who has the bigger face? A female ghost fairy, Xiao Pu is also a top assassin from the Cherry Tsingyi lineage. She should have a Taoist heart as strong as iron and be as immovable as a mountain, and not have a will as weak as a piece of paper, swaying in the wind. Xiao Pu remained silent. Just because senior brother Lu reminded her from the bottom of his heart that if she continued to speak out loud, Lu Taoji would break the rules of the main hole. In fact, there were 2 reasons, which Lu Taoji did not say. The young swordsman in front of him is so full of Tao Qi that he has almost reached the realm of heaven and earth. He is extremely mentally strong, so his yang Qi is pure and scorching like fire. It follows the qi, and its momentum is like running water, moving up towards the eyes. But for the eyes, so to the ghost, even if the opponent stands still, it is equivalent to a sword question. He, Lu Taoji, was in the immortal realm and had worked hard to cultivate his Taoist qi, so he could deal with it indifferently. Xiao Pu was only in the Jade Pu realm, so he could easily be led by Qin Pingan's Taoist qi and state of mind. The situation at this time is quite mysterious. When Xiao Pu sees Qin Pingan, the ghost can't help but hold a mirror to look at him. What's even more mysterious is that Qin Pingan is the man in the mirror, which seems to be able to affect Xiao Pu's state of mind, making him unable to control himself. Like a puppet on strings. Furthermore, Xiao Pu is the one who has the most entanglement with Qin Pingan among those who have cleared their wrongs. Whether Lu Taoji or Qin Bai, what they see in Qin Pingan's eyes is that he is a young hidden official and a disciple of Wenxing. So when we meet, we can discuss things in a relaxed manner. But this was not the case for Xiao Pu. She had seen a lot of Qin Pingan's affairs when he was young, so it was the most difficult for her to be calm. Of course, Qin Pingan is still young now. However, Lu Taoji believed that Qin Pingan had already thought of these two reasons. It makes no difference whether you say it or not. Lu Taoji said, the position of the leader of Xiao Pu's lineage has been vacant for a long time. Xiao Pu has been busy for hundreds of years and traveled to 3 continents. Especially during the war, she took the initiative to go to Tongya continent. This is to accumulate external skills so as to fill the vacancy. After Qin Bai left office, there has never been a person in the Taoist Xinjiai lineage who has both moral character and high Taoist skills. About 100 years ago, the main hall established a new Taoist Xinjiai branch for Tao Tingyi. There is a rule that the person with the highest merit will be the leader, the person with the highest realm will be the leader, and the person with the most spiritual power will be the preacher, responsible for finding fairy seedling seeds. Qin Pingan nodded. If justice is in the heart of the people, one cannot ignore the credit he deserves. He glanced at Xiao Pu again. Since this woman in green skirt is one of the 3 candidates to be the leader of Cherry Greeny lineage, how high are the other 2 candidates? Xiao Pu glanced at him. Have you seen through the trap that you carefully arranged to restrict the landscape and recognized your true appearance? How about imitating that certain young prodigy who has been coveting Gongsun Lingling for a long time, and prefers an older plump woman instead of a slender young woman? No wonder he looked down on the stunningly beautiful Sui Jingqing back then. Is the path number wrong? Qin Pingan was smiling. First, there was the excessive drinking and sex of the high toast, and then there was the wrong way of the woman in the green skirt. Your eyes are all on your buttocks. Perhaps he felt that the atmosphere was too solemn and there was no need to make the relationship so tense. Lu Taoji smiled and said, since we have not negotiated a deal with Qin Guosher, the immortal of the Yuan dynasty in Huzhou has also come to Chongyang Temple. After that, the affairs of the master's sect will be all over. It was left to Xiao Pu to deal with, and the main hall couldn't find any fault. I was happy and free, relieved my burden, and went to other continents to try my luck. To be honest, Qin Guosher and the Dali Song family helped Luo Luoshan select fairy seedlings for ground materials and practice martial arts. Geniuses may not be better than us. After all, the Great Li Court can only look for good talents and jade in Aquarius continent and Tongya continent, but we can work quietly for 20 years for a chief minister in the 8 continents of Hauran. By then, Lola Mountain is closed and reopened, and the number of cultivators in the upper sect is probably only a lot more than that of the lower sect. Qin Pingan waved his hand and said with a smile, there are benefits to being busy, and there is leisure to be lazy. There is no need to persuade Senior Lu. He stretched out his hand without hitting the smiling person, and was not surprised by the politeness of many people. Qin Pingan thought for a moment and said, with the Shishan Jianin lineage, from now on, whether it is here to secretly protect the way for the elders of the master, or to go somewhere outside the Great Li Huzu. There will be no problem if the Daidu people return to the mountain and the lintel of the gate is illuminated. However, there are scandals ahead, and I will report this matter to the Dali imperial court. Lu Taoji, Xiao Pu, and Jun Qing are all high-ranking scholars. I regard you as gentlemen of Mingyu Qingfeng. You must not treat me and the Dali court as fools. Lu Taoji heard that Xian understood the elegant meaning and immediately nodded and said, if we have a conflict with Nian Ganlang of the Dali Xingbu because of a certain monastic genius, members of the Xishan Jianin lineage will take the initiative to give in and choose other disciples. Perhaps this is the reciprocity of courtesy and reciprocation. Sensing Chen Pingan's gaze lingering on him again, Xiao Pu could only follow up, I haven't become the chief helmsman of Cherry Tsing Yi yet, so I don't dare to say anything for sure, but I will send a few words of advice to the main hall. When I met the Minister of Justice and Nian Ganlang who were out of Dali, I just had to give in. But whether this matter will succeed or not will still need to be discussed and decided by the main hall, I don't have the say. Chen Pingan nodded and said with a smile, the starting point of a business is not money, but integrity. It's just that Xiao Pu couldn't help but feel worried. More than once or twice, this person didn't look at her face, but wanted to look at her figure. When a man looks at a woman, he doesn't look at the face but the breasts, and he doesn't pay attention to the eyebrows and waist buttocks. Is he really just like that thief? What Chen Pingan is really interested in is certainly not what Xiao Pu misunderstood. But the robe of the woman in green skirt, which has multiple magic restrictions, seems to be a mountain treasure that starts as a semi-immortal soldier and may even reach the rank of an immortal soldier. And the more Chen Pingan looked at it, the more familiar he looked. It turned out that in the Hehuan mountain area, the real person Qing Qian, who looked like a child, had a robe on his body, and he looked magnificent. It was the treasure of the Jinkei sect that had been passed down from generation to generation. A certain abandoned disciple of Tianjun Chao Rong is himself a wordless Taoist book. It can help Qing Qian get through the Yuming Pass. To a certain extent, he can ignore the restriction between yin and yang. After passing through the gate of hell, he can walk on the road to the underworld as a living person in the underworld. However, how far he can go in the underworld probably depends on the monk's merit and merit. The power of Taoism is strong or weak. However, the one worn by the woman in green skirt is somewhat different from the Taoist robe worn by Qing Qian. It is not just because of its higher rank, but also because of the seven-dimensional celestial phenomenon of the sun, moon, and the 5 stars of gold, wood, water, fire and earth. There is a left hand and right hand difference. The Taoist robe worn by Qing Qian is left-handed, and the robe worn by the woman in the green skirt is right-handed. This is correct. The real Qing Qian is a living person, but Xiao Pu is a ghost. They need exactly the opposite to reverse the yin and yang, and finally reach the same destination through different paths, and each can walk on the road to the underworld. Lu Taoji laughed from the bottom of his heart and said, Xiao Pu, the voices of you and me can be heard by Master Qin for example now. As for whether the thoughts outside the heart can be seen through by Master Qin, I don't know. I'm not sure. Xiao Pudeo was shocked and his face turned ugly. She was more horrified than surprised. Chen Pingan smiled and said, the realm is low. It's just that we are not far from each other. The moon is near the water and the tower is first, so I can barely hear the vague voice. As for the thoughts, they are so hidden that they cannot be seen through. We can only rely on guessing, which may not be accurate. Lu Taoji smiled and said, Master Chen really treats people with sincerity. Chen Pingan smiled and said, I guess this sentence is not an irony. Xiao Pu sighed quietly, not talking about others, just saying that in her life, it seemed that anyone named Qin was not easy to mess with. I owe you the last name Qin in my previous life, right? Chen Pingan cupped his hands and clasped his fists, see you later, let's drink next time. Lu Taoji clasped his fists and said, the next time we meet again, we will probably meet again on another continent, in a foreign land. Then Lu will have a drink and see if the Qingshan drink from the second shopkeeper is real. Chen Pingan laughed it off, turned and left. The last time we discussed matters at the Confucian Temple, Mrs. Qingshan from Zhuhai Cave Sky didn't say anything. You outsiders didn't count the truth or lies. If Chen Pingan is injured but not killed, no matter how serious his injury is, it will still be meaningless even if he falls into an ordinary state. I knew that this person was not very old but was not easy to kill, but I didn't expect it to be so difficult to kill. What a providence! Is there really no shortcut on the road to the 14th realm of Hadao? Since the attack failed, he had no choice but to retreat. Lu Taoji seemed to be in some kind of drowning situation again, and his breathing was stagnant. The picture scroll scene is like the tide receding. At the same time, deep in Xiaopu's soul, the guest, who was a mustard seed, suddenly shattered into pieces, scattered into a wisp of blue smoke, and was taken away. The long and slender river of time that he created earlier was the path of this person's magic. Indeed, there is no better means in the world than this to eliminate Dao marks and destroy evidence. That existence made a sound in his heart, which was very surprising. It turned out that the young Yingguan actually stood there, motionless. Instead of practicing a section of Time Water and a section of Huangquan Road at the same time, he chose to be injured rather than be trapped by the long river of time. He followed the flow of water and reversed it, returning to him and Xiaopu. Lu Taoji was in the same situ a moment ago. Chen Pingan spoke hoarsely and said distantly, wait. Everything returned to normal. Outside the Chongyang pavilion, Xiaopu's face was pale and colorless, as if he was a mess from another life. Lu Taozi's heart was extremely heavy. If Chen Pingan had previously launched an army to investigate, he could have eased it a bit. Now that something like this has happened, how can he settle the score? At the most minor level, it was the Yingying Qingyi lineage and the Shishan Jianin lineage who had a grudge in their hearts and assassinated the great Li imperial master. At the most serious level, was it the three lines of the one-washers colluding with barbarian? Instead, Chen Pingan, who was assassinated, turned around with a calm expression. I thought I would be hit by Wu Zhouijin from Qingming Tianxia inexplicably. I never thought that a ghost would be the first to take action. He just wanted to kill people. What was the other party planning? In the past, on top of the city, when Chen Pingan first took up the post of hidden official, there was a local swordsman from the Great Sword Qi Great Wall who also went on a murderous rampage without any warning. Having suffered a loss once, Chen Pingan would not make a second mistake, so he came prepared for his second visit to Chongyang Temple, wearing a few more robes and military armor. 1,000 days to guard against thieves, practice makes perfect. Even the female crown of the 14th realm, the sword passed by my continent across the world, Chen Pingan is ready to take the next sword. This time is not the 14th realm. If he can't catch it, it is better to hide in the Luoluo mountain, or I might as well move to the Gongda forest in the Confucian temple to read. Therefore, Lu Taoji and Xiaopu found this startless sneak attack thrilling, but Chen Pingan, who was assassinated, was okay. Why did Chen Pingan look at Xiaopu's robe many times? Again, Chen Pingan is very disciplined and would not stare at a woman again and again. Generally speaking, if a new member of the 14th realm in the wild world wants to escape with Chen Pingan from the Haoran world, he must first pass the Lixing and Confucian temple levels. It is not impossible, but it's not big. Because the Lixing is outside the sky, staring at the green road. Therefore, after Chen Pingan thought about it, what he was most worried about was a sneaky detour, such as a great monk passing through a certain underworld road to assassinate himself. That's why Chen Pingan was so concerned about the robe worn by the woman in green skirt, and was careful. Xiao Pu was naturally unable to argue. Several times he tried to speak, but she swallowed it back. Lu Taoji was also helpless. How should he explain this to Chen Pingan and how to explain it to the Chinese Confucian temple? No matter how the assassin possessed Xiao Pu, his level was so high and his methods were so secretive that it was unbelievable. A top-notch magic technique from a monk at the peak of the Ascension realm. No, we have reached the state of perfection, only half a step away. Was it a 14th realm candidate who deliberately targeted Chen Pingan in a deliberate and sneaky attack? Chen Pingan was indeed seriously injured in the battle with Ma Kushuan. After such a beating, the injury was even worse. Chen Pingan coughed a few times, put his fist to his mouth, rested for a moment, retracted his hands and sleeves, and said with a smile, "It's okay." He added another sentence to lighten the atmosphere, "Senior Lu, you don't need to think too much." Lu Taoji smiled bitterly. Could this be considered okay? Even Xiao Pu wanted to give this person a thumbs up when he heard this. A man is so open-minded, and Yin Guan is indeed a hero. Chen Pingan thought for a while and explained, "Lu Taoji, Xiao Pu, you really don't have to feel guilty. I have to thank Xiao Pu for protecting a certain friend from disaster. Otherwise, it will be replaced by Xu Jian Hu Xingyi, the female ghost Shui Rui in the capital." Chen Pingan had roughly figured out the situation, looked at the woman in the green skirt, and said with a smile, "But Xiao Pu really has to thank me once, and he was able to avoid a disaster with weapons, and there are no hidden dangers in his defective Taoist heart. It just so happens that he has to thank me once. Offset, we don't have to express our gratitude." Those who practice Taoism must rely on external objects, act according to their will, take risks and cross the boundary between yin and yang, and go to the underworld to look for clues about their enemies. They must not do it again and again. How can you always walk by the river without getting your shoes wet? It's not good to walk too much at night. Revenge is necessary, but it doesn't mean giving away a head to the enemy for free. If I guess correctly, the enemy surnamed Shin that you are looking for has either attached himself to this ghost in the underworld, or was eaten up by it. Maybe every ghost in the world is a mountain and river ferry for them to fly across. The name, Chen Pingan, is like the green curtain wine flag of a restaurant in Xianjia Ferry. Xiao Pu patiently listened to the teachings of a young man without getting bored. In the past, she had never been so modest with her most respected senior sister, Qin Bai. On the premise that she knew that senior brother Lu was here to protect the Taoist priests, she only said that she came to Baya Pingzhu from Luzhou in Beiju and came to the capital of Yushuan Kingdom to watch Chen Pingan take revenge on the Ma family on Wuxia Street. Are these thoughts really my own? What a strange mistake. At this moment, Xiao Pu felt as if a big stone had fallen to the ground in his heart, and his Taoist heart became a little clearer. Seeing that she didn't move, Chen Pingan could only remind her, "Xiao Pu, to be cautious, it is safe to deliver the robe you are wearing to the main hall for refining." Xiao Pu realized later, she quickly reached out to grab the robe, pulled it off, not daring to keep it in her hand, and handed it to Lu Taoji, who quickly put it into his sleeve. Lu Taoji did not dare to take it lightly. Using several methods of overpowering. She was still dressed like a woman in a green skirt, perhaps because of the coexistence of the blindfold and the robe, so her face and figure had changed at this moment, and she was as beautiful as the plump character. The sight of the young girl and the young girl in the pavilion, so close to each other, has long been covered with white fog, making it difficult to see clearly. Chen Pingan understood clearly. Such a hot potato, Lu Taoji accepted it immediately. The key is that the swordsman never changed his mind at all. It can be seen from this that the 3 lines of purging the wronged people are indeed intimate and act bravely and aboveboard. Chen Pingan's grudge disappeared. I said politely before that I don't care, but now I really don't care about you anymore. This is called treating others with sincerity and being consistent in words and deeds. Lu Taoji seemed to be aware of Chen Pingan's temptation, and smiled bitterly in his heart. On top of the Chongyang wall, stood a young woman with her hair in a round bun. It was Pei Qian who came here from the Qinghuang Temple in the capital. Chen Pingan heard the content of Pei Qian's secret message, smiled and nodded. It's a coincidence and a coincidence. It turns out that Zhou Fangyu, the highest-ranking city god in the city god's temple in Haoran, happened to be taking General Fan on a private visit to Aquarius Continent incognito. As a result, a ghost from the underworld committed a murderous act, and it was right under his nose. This forced Zhou Qinghuang to immediately return to the temple of the city god in the divine continent of Middle-earth to sacrifice something that was forged by the ceremonial saint and canonized by the most holy master. It's such a sacred thing that I have to go to Fengdu myself. Before Zhou Qinghuang left, he asked Pei Qian to send a message to help apologize to her master, and then made an exception to reveal a secret. According to Zhou Fangyu's derivation, this ghost that has been blocked outside the threshold of the 14th realm for many years is trying to kill Chen Pingan, the last hidden official of the Great Sword Qi Wall, from the side of heaven, which is neither good nor evil and impartial. Taking the place of all the souls of the demons who died on the Sword Qi Great Wall in the wild world, it is like helping them redress their grievances and earn a large amount of Inda, which can be used as the basis for one's own 14th realm of Hidao. With this cost on the ghost path, it is possible to help him take one more step. As for the identity of the ghost, it is not suitable to be revealed for the time being. But regarding this matter, Fengdu in the underworld and the Qinghuang Temple in the human world promised to give an explanation. Previously, there was indeed a majestic voice as loud as thunder, in the Huawei land that was not under the jurisdiction of Fengdu, resounding throughout the vast territory of the small half-underworld. I want to eradicate a demon for the world and kill Chen Pingan, a living person in the world. Before the endless trillions of ghosts in the underworld came to their senses, the sound gradually faded away. Afterwards, countless walking ghosts who were originally from the wild monster clan raised their heads and looked around, noisy and excited, waiting for good news. The wait has been fruitless, and I don't know if Chen Pingan has been killed or not. Under the scolding and whipping of the ghosts from the underworld on the road, they had no choice but to continue moving forward. The candidate ghost of the 14th realm used several life-saving means that greatly damaged his Taoist practice. He abandoned the Taoist temple and fled again and again, and has disappeared since then. Otherwise, he would not even refuse the invitation from the Confucian temple. We outsiders think that he is in his early 40s. He has become an immortal, and his speed is fast enough. But he may not think so, maybe he is still too slow. Some old grievances, the outside world is just looking at the flowers in the fog, and we don't know the truth. Practice boxing to risk one's life, another village will be bright with dark flowers, one will continue the Chongqing Bridge, and finally become a swordsman on the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Now that he is alive and returning to the vastness, there is hope for climbing to the top and seeing the road. It is really not suitable to be distracted. You need to be focused on nothing else. Goo. I have gone through all the hard work to get to the top. All I want is to defeat Chao Ci with boxing and defeat another person with swordsmanship. The former does not matter whether I can succeed or not, but the latter must be achieved. Hearing this, Xiaopu gently touched Qingchuan and murmured, no matter how talented and smart he is, how can he win against that person? Lu Taoji said with a smile, you can't rely on too many external things, and you don't have to think too much about other people's affairs. Xiaopu remained silent and rolled his eyes charmingly. Chen Pingan was walking on the street with Pei Qian. After walking a few steps, he suddenly figured out something. The mugwort hanging at the door of the house was given to the female ghost Shui Rui by Lu Qin. He could also go around it. Give it to Qing Fengxian, who was supposed to be the preacher of Baiyun. Can it even be used to block the cross-border sneak attack by that Ascension Realm ghost? Lu Qin made a seemingly indifferent move. As long as Chen Pingon understood the connection, wouldn't he have to accept 3 favors from him at the same time? It seems that I really have to learn the calculation of inner rejection in the past. When Chen Pingon recovered a hidden sword talisman left in Chongyang Temple, this talisman was called Ripple, so if there was any slight disturbance, it could be recorded one by the talisman. It was one of the many talismans that Chen Pingon drew casually when he had nothing to do when he and Lu Qin were temporarily borrowing realms. This talisman is not small, and the threshold for its use is very high. It takes an immortal to sacrifice it, post it somewhere, and wait for it to happen. Chen Pingon shot himself in the foot before. He drew a box of talismans and hid them secretly. Because he returned the 14th level of Taoism, he felt a nascent soul, and as a result, none of them could be used. Now that my realm is high and I have enough confidence, it's up to me whether I use it myself, sell it to make money, or give it as a gift from the mountain. And inside that box, there was a pile of large talismans that could only be used by Ascension Realm monks. Pei Qian said, "They are back." Chen Pingon smiled and said, "You don't need to follow. Just sacrifice the 3 mountain talisman and go back to Tongyi's Hao Dadu to do business. There is no need to worry about Master." Pei Qian remained silent. Chen Pingon thought about it and could only come up with a lame reason, and said casually, "As long as the ultimate level is not reached, it will not be of much help to the Master. So when I arrived at Tongyi's Hao, I practiced boxing while busy with the general affairs. You can't slack off in anything, and you can't be arrogant and complacent because you think it's not difficult to return to the true state. You are now at the highest level of energy, the Master has returned to the true state, and Chao Ci is even more amazing." Pei Qian hummed, "Don't worry, Master, I will work hard." Chen Pingon immediately regretted it and felt very distressed, so he immediately changed his words and said, "There's no need to try too hard." Pei Qian didn't say anything, he just pursed his lips and slightly wrinkled his 2 slender eyebrows. Chen Pingon bent his fingers, gently smashed a chestnut on Pei Qian's head, and said softly, "You want to get out of a world that belongs to Pei Qian. From now on, when you speak and do things, you don't have to think about whether the Master will feel what he heard or saw. It's wrong. Before the Master came back, he was doing very well. There is no reason why the Master has come back, but he has become helpless. It seems that Pei Qian is deliberately hiding from that Jing Qian, and Jing Qian is hiding from her Master. This is not good." Pei Qian was still depressed and silent. Chen Pingon put his hands in his sleeves and almost wanted to reach out and slap himself. He shouldn't mention Chao Ci or anything amazing. No, this debt must be settled on Chao Ci's head, no, on his face. Pei Qian took out a 3 mountain talisman from his sleeve, suddenly walked a few steps faster, walked in front of his Master, then turned around and walked backwards, grinning and saying, "Master, let's go, see you later." Chen Pingon nodded, with gentle eyes, and made a talisman to forehead gesture. Pei Qian Nanyan offered the 3 mountains talisman and imagined 2 continents and 3 mountains in his mind, Zidong Mountain in the south of Aquarius Continent, Qingjing Mountain in the north of Tongya Continent, and a mountain near Yunyan Kingdom in the middle of Dadu. Her figure disappeared in a flash. After several flutters, he soon appeared on a mountaintop across the continent. Chen Pingon walked towards the house. It is indeed as Lu Taoji said. On the road to martial arts, wanting to stand shoulder to shoulder with Chao Ci and then catch up to him is of course one of Chen Ping's 2 biggest aspirations in learning boxing in his life, but the final result is far less important than the process. One day in the future, if Wen Quan can really beat Chao Ci, that would be an unexpected surprise. It seems there is no shame in losing. Anyway, Chao Ci can win my punch, which doesn't prevent me from punching Chao Ci in the face. As for practicing swordsmanship, the process is important, but the results are even more important. A sword that can defeat one person is enough. For example, this person is Yu Do. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.